There we go. Activating live streams. We are coming up on YouTube right now, jblive.tv, chat rooms at irc.geekshed.net. This officially is the Unfiltered pre-show. Welcome in, everybody. Come on in. We're kicking off the overtime. Things are just about to get started. Mr. Chase is en route. The overtime time is just a moment away. Stand by. I thought maybe we'd begin with a few live stream exclusives. All right, so to warm us up, I've gone ahead and I've activated the Unfiltered Bat computer. You have one of these, don't you? A Bat computer? You've heard it at the beginning of our stream sometimes. You can hear it computing away. Sometimes you get like a really strong compute job going. You'll hear our computer working really hard sometimes when there's like a big job. Yeah. Yeah, you hear that? And so I'm computing the next clip for you using the Unfiltered computer system. Now, I know. This means we're handing over our will to the computer. But I believe the outcome will be worth it, as it is about to pick our next clip. Ladies and gentlemen, will the computer, the Unfiltered Bat computer, will it pick Mexico is a hostile force? Or Laura Ingraham under fire? Now we run the compute output. Here we go. Oh. Seems like we got a bad result here. Let me hold on. Goddamn stupid computer from the 50s. This dumb thing is. There we go. There, I think I managed to fix that. All right, now we hit the output button. There we go. Oh, results are in. And it turns out Mexico is a hostile force. Oh, geez. The computer forgot to turn off the music, though, so now we have Mexico as a hostile force and music. See if you can keep up. Go, go, go!
Announced today that he plans to send the military to guard America's border with Mexico. The announcement was sparked by a convoy of more than 1,000 Central Americans that has been making its way through Mexico toward this country. Mexico's government claimed on Monday to have broken up the convoy and deported 400 people in it. But the people who are actually running that convoy say otherwise. One of them told BuzzFeed, quote, "Don't be fooled, the government isn't disbanding it. It's conceding its participants' right to apply for asylum without traveling in the shadows." Either way, we have no reason to trust the good intentions of the Mexican government. In 2017, the Mexican Foreign Ministry published a video encouraging Mexican citizens to break American immigration law. It advised them not to open their doors to federal authority. It told them to hide the fact they're there illegally. And it was not the first time the Mexican government has done this. In 2004, the government printed and distributed more than 1.5 million pamphlets telling Mexicans how to enter this country illegally and live here without being detained.
So I watched this with two minds. One is, what's Tucker's motivation here, right? What is Tucker up to? And then number two is Tucker taking a position? Is Tucker taking a position? That's a genuine question I'm going to ask you. As you watch this, I mean, so put aside the fact that he's even covering the segment is taking a position. Set that aside. Within the context of the segment, is he taking a position?
Telling Mexicans how to enter this country illegally and live here without being detained. It even had tips on what clothes to wear while crossing a river, presumably the Rio Grande. Recently, Mexico filed an amicus brief protesting Texas's anti-sanctuary city bill. The Mexican foreign minister has called for illegal aliens in this country to receive legal status and has denounced the border wall as, quote, a hostile act. Hostile? Mexico is the hostile power here. Just today, former Mexican President Vicente Fox tweeted that Donald Trump is, quote, enemy number one of Mexico.
Yeah, he's always hated
he then
Trump, though.
Retweeted someone else who suggested that if a dispute does happen, Trump will, quote, probably give back the state of California. The implication, of course, is that Mexico really owns California.
Yeah, they can have it as far as I'm concerned. So what do you think? No offense to those of you living in California, of course. What is Kucker's position? I couldn't actually totally suss it out. I mean, you could say nationalist, but if he's just stating the positions of the Mexican government, he's not making anything up. I mean, he's showing you a video they made. Is it Kucker being, I'm not sure. Is he being a nationalist there, or is it Kucker just covering a different angle that he knows would play well to the audience? Not sure about that. I'm not so sure about that. Ooh, Mr. Chase is on the freeway, and he's doing a grand 16 miles per hour. Gotta love that Seattle traffic. Gotta.
Brother, and you got the President of the United States this morning tweeting that the Second Amendment will never be repealed. We must have more Who's calling for a repeal of the Second Amendment?
Well,
who's calling for it?
Justice Stevens
You are.
did, but
He
You
did
are.
not. It was in the context of a conversation about the fastest route to legal change. And of course, if you didn't have a Second Amendment, you wouldn't have Heller. It would be easier to change the laws. He's not a politician. He's not in office. He's not the head of any kind of significant
Why does he
group.
care
He's
so
a
much, huh?
boogeyman,
He was a
Rick,
former-
and
he
that
was a
does
former
not.
Supreme
Kumo's
Court
fired up.
justice
That does not breed unity. It's a boogeyman, and you know it.
Look, there have been boogeymans on both sides, and that's the point I've been trying to get to, which is there are things that, in fact, can unify us, and what we see is demonization. You point to the right, I will point to the left. Look at what they've done to Marco Rubio. I mean, Marco Rubio's been out there trying to do everything he can to stop these horrific events,
That's not
engaging young people. That is true.
That's not true. He's
No,
doing
it is
negotiations.
true.
He's talked about the kinds of bills. He's not working on any meaningful restriction of access. He is
Because
trying to do some red flag work. That's all good and fine. But do not put Marco Rubio out there
Yes,
as someone
I will.
who's at the
Chris,
forefront
this
of
is-
the most
this is-
progressive ways to end these shootings.
This is the problem that we have here. If you don't agree with you on a particular solution that you agree to, that somehow or another you don't care about this. That's wrong, Chris.
That's
you
your
can't
take.
demonize. No, you can't.
I'm not
demonize
demonizing
people.
anybody.
Yes, you are.
How
You're
so?
saying that he doesn't care about trying
No,
to solve
I never
this
said
problem
that.
because.
I'll send you the transcript of this. You're thinking
Okay.
it in your head because it's convenient,
Okay,
but it's
now tell
not
me what
coming
you're
out
saying
of my
then, Chris.
mouth.
Well, tell me
What
what
I'm
you're saying
saying
then.
is access about who gets weapons and how is the fundamental question in this situation, okay? It just is. I'm not calling for a weapons ban. I'm not calling for anything. It's up to you and your ilk to figure out the answers.
Well,
Ilk.
Access
I do what
matters.
you do now,
How
but-
we deal
Ilk.
with the mentally ill, if you're talking about mass
agree
shootings
with that.
specifically, which is ignoring the larger problem of gun violence in this country, but that's fine. This matters too. It's a discrete issue. It has to be dealt with. On those two issues, Marco Rubio sat at that town hall. He says he disagrees with certain things about controls and background checks and how universal they should be. But those are fundamental questions. So don't put him up at the top of the leaderboard about who's trying to make the positive changes that would change this situation. However, it would be unfair to say he is doing nothing. I agree with that. I never said he was doing nothing. He's doing things, but to put him up at the head, that's out of convenience. That's
Mommy needs a joint.
Jeez, mommy's a little loud. Yeah, so, you know, the reason why Kumo is defending Marco so hard is because it was CNN who hosted that town hall that's now gotten him in trouble with his own party. And CNN doesn't want their guests to have a negative political repercussion for coming on CNN's airwaves because then less people are going to come on. So now they are showing Marco that because you played ball, we're gonna go to bat for you. That's my read on that situation. And it shows you how all these different interests are at play when those news actors are in front of the camera. We're gonna get to more of that in a moment, actually, in the overtime. But that's just, yeah. You know what I'm? You guys know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. All right, so let's cover this one. I want to cover it here at the top of the live stream. I couldn't get enough clips to make a full segment, even in the overtime, out of this. But I bet a lot of you are aware of Israel's force, their recent, I guess, increase of force. Maybe, I don't know how to put it. Like so there was a recent, military action that Israel took against the Palestinians. And there was kind of a build-up to it for a couple of weeks, and we saw a couple of hints here and there. And then there was action taken that was extremely aggressive, and it went after unarmed Palestinians. And there was a call to condemn the action and behavior at the UN, because it is barbaric behavior. And it went nowhere.
This meeting was hastily convened on an official UN holiday. It was called for by the Arab member of the Security Council, Kuwait, because its ambassador told me of the scale of the bloodshed.
This is a violation of the international humanitarian law. As occupying power, also they are violating their obligations in accordance to Geneva Convention.
What should the Council do now?
We will ask the Council to take action.
Originally, this was supposed to be a closed meeting. Behind the scenes, the US was blocking a council statement condemning Israel, and so Kuwait threatened to call an open meeting. The US, being represented by a mid-level diplomat rather than its ambassador Nikki Haley, didn't back down.
We urge those involved to take steps to lower tensions and reduce the risk of new clashes. Bad actors who use protests as a cover to incite violence endanger innocent lives.
The Palestinian ambassador was very clear about his government's view of what happened on the Gaza border.
Those who brought the violence and the killing are the Israeli armed forces, our people in the Gaza Strip, raising not a banner of faction, but the Palestinian flag, demonstrated peacefully, and they were attacked by the Israeli armed forces. It's a massacre by them.
The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has issued a statement calling for a transparent and independent investigation into what happened on the Gaza border. The UN Security Council, however, can't even agree a statement, with the US, as it's done so many times before, taking one side, that of Israel. James Bays, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations.
Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. All right, one more, and then we'll get going. I'm saving a few as well. You know, the random machine there didn't play the Laura Ingraham Under Attack. I might play that. You know what, in fact, instead, let's do a totally different thing. Let's do a different subject. Let's play a Facebook thing, because I don't have any Facebook in the main show, I don't think. So we can get it out right here. Let's get it out of our systems. You guys good with that? All right, here is El Facebook.
Facebook's business practices get more disturbing the more you learn about them, and we learn more every day. Now we have new evidence the company may be spying on users at work and in their homes in ways they never imagined. Brett Larson is a Fox News tech reporter and anchor for Fox News Headlines 24/7, and he joins us tonight. Hey, Brett.
Hey, Tucker. Yeah, we are getting some very troubling information about just what Facebook is learning about their users. They're listening in on your conversations. How would they do that? Well, it's pretty simple. If you've got the Facebook app on your phone, there's a microphone right here. In fact, most of our smartphones have multiple microphones on them so that they can hear your voice clearly in a loud room. Now, Facebook denies that they are doing this, saying they have never listened in for the purpose of advertising. But many users have gone online, and folks have even queried me in person with anecdotal evidence that usually goes a little something like, hey, so I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and we opened up Facebook and saw an ad about something that we were just discussing. Now, this news also comes as Christopher Wiley, he is the whistleblower seen here from Cambridge Analytica. He actually appeared before the British House of Commons, that's similar to our House of Representatives, and he said Facebook has the ability to listen in so they know if you're walking around, if you're in a loud bar, or if you're at home watching TV. Now, we already know that Facebook tracks our every move online, every site you visit, things that you like, friends that you have, all so that they can build this increasingly accurate profile about you to sell you targeted advertising. Now, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has been invited to speak to a congressional panel about the problems uncovered with Facebook. And actually, just today, the social media giant rolling out a new security page. You'll start to see this, where you can access all your settings for security all in one place. You can even download all of your Facebook data in one massive download, all your pictures, all your posts. You'll start to see that in the next coming days and weeks. And Tucker, also today, Apple CEO Tim Cook said it is time to look and see what can be done to ensure that when we are online, our privacy is protected. Very troubling information out of Facebook.
Yeah, it's about time. Brett, thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Tucker.
Yeah, easy for him to say. Tim Cook, I mean. He doesn't have any online services that anybody wants to use. Oh, I burn. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the unfiltered overtime time for the overtime time. Let's see. Well, you know what? Mr. Chase is actually still. I have like this little town it's like my benchmark, and when Chase gets to that town, that's when I know it's safe to start the overtime, and he's like 2 minutes out. You gotta, like, that man makes more. That guy, he makes more distance in bad traffic than anybody else I know. Damn. Okay. All right. How long is this? Can I, let's do this. Okay. I've been meaning to play this for you for weeks and weeks and weeks. I wonder if I should just not say anything. I'm not going to say anything and see if you can figure out. As soon as you figure out who this is, put their name in the chat room. Bonus points for getting the name right.
I'm Chelsea Manning, and I approve this message.
Oh, damn it. Totally trolled. I forgot, of course. That's at the beginning. That doesn't come up. Damn it, I forgot. Well, all right. Spoiler alert. This is my day!
We live in trying times. Times of fear. Of suppression. Of hate. We don't need more or better leaders. We need someone willing to fight. We need to stop asking them to give us our rights. They won't support us. They won't compromise. We need to stop expecting that our systems will somehow fix themselves. We need to actually take the reins of power from them. We need to challenge them at every level. We need to fix this. We don't need them anymore. We can do better. You're damn right we got this.
There you go. Chelsea Manning running for Senate. 10 says in the chat room, yeah, it's Kurt Cobain, obviously. You know, the only thing I didn't get in that whole thing, I know this is a weird thing, but this is the production person in me. Because, you know, I mean, like, you know, that is a big part of my life is I review all the shows we put out and stuff, and I constantly have things for people to improve. But the rose just doesn't really click for me. Like, what's that rose doing there? It's all I could look at, you know? I can just looking at the rose now, and I'm like, what is this, a kiss from a rose? Like, I don't. So that was the only thing about that whole thing that threw me a little bit. Is like, okay, well, I kind of get that somebody who's, you know, got a service background and had been through the political machine might want to run for office. But the thing I didn't get was the rose. I didn't get that. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyways, that's for future Chris. Let's get the overtime started. Beep 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 boop boop boop. All right, it is the Unfiltered Overtime, and it begins in a 3, in a 2, in a 1. And thank you everybody for being here. If you want, you know, I should just say really quick before I get started, because once I get going, I won't mention it again. If you want to join us in the chat room, you can. It is irc.geekshed.net, and then we have a dedicated #hashtag unfiltered chat room. You go in there, you hang out with us, and we just have a good time. It's one of the few shows where it's like this and Linux Unplugged, where I really, really enjoy that live interaction. Like, it really makes the difference. So we'd love to have you over there. Just make sure you flush the toilet before you come in, because nobody likes a stinky. Yeah, get that out of here. Get that. Nobody likes courtesy flush. All right. Courtesy flush. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. All right, here we go. It's the Unfiltered Overtime for 274 in 3, in 2. Show's not over yet. It's time for the overtime. Stay woke indeed, my friends. Stay woke indeed. Patreon.com/unfilter.
Stay woke!
Thank you to our patrons over there for supporting the show. I clipped that myself, by the way. Clipped it myself. Because our patrons make the production of this show possible. You guys are what enable me as a business owner to carve out hours and hours of time every single week and dedicate my focus to this show. And then you guys stepped up again, and you made it possible for us to have a producer who could monitor the news all the time when things break and make sure we're grabbing clips as they happen. Our patrons did that, and I want to thank you. We have one new patron this week. Thank you to Natalie. It's a slow climb to our next goal, and I appreciate every single person who has the will and the means to support us. It means a lot. Patreon.com/unfilter. This overtime segment is dedicated to you. Now, we start things off in the overtime with the Oh Nancy segment. You know that. It's something we've done for a while, and I almost grow tired. I grow tired, my friends. I tire. Because how many times can I make this point and have nothing change? I need to move on eventually. Creatively, I have lost inspiration on the Oh Nancy segment. I'm creatively bankrupt with this segment. It's just, there's so much corruption and greed that I can't help but keep going.
Yep, that's House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. And a new report now says that she is featured in 1/3 of all GOP broadcast ads aired in House races this year. That compares with just 9% in all of 2016 and 13% in 2014. Here's one attacking Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly from Indiana. Listen.
But Senator Joe Donnelly voted against tax cuts for hardworking Hoosiers. He stood with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer instead of us.
So this is a point that I've been making for a while, is that Nancy Pelosi has a political cost. And that's something that is becoming more and more political ammo.
Yep. So joining me now, the Daily Signal's Kelsey Hartness and Democratic strategist Danielle McLaughlin. Could Pelosi, Kelsey, let's start with you, be the Democrats' undoing in the midterms?
No. You see, it's all about the money. It's all about the money. That, and of course, as we all know, staying woke. We got to stay woke. Like Maxine Waters always tells us, got to stay woke all the time. Anti-Maxine. And she's always reclaiming her time, right?
My millennials, stay woke.
And she's reclaiming time.
Reclaiming my time.
And that's fine. You see, that's cute. See, I got that clip off of C-SPAN, and that's fine when she did it. It was a moment, and it's great to mock her. It's not a brand, though. God damn it, it's not a brand. Stop it, Maxine Waters. Stop it. Here's Maxine Waters this week at the DoubleTree, and I don't actually have my I don't actually have it on my notes. Where this event was. I forgot to write that down because I got so distracted. And I'm not joking. I got so distracted by all of the corporate sponsors that are littered behind her that's like half cut off on this video that's the wrong aspect ratio too. Like just, oh my God, you guys. You go just one hop off of the main networks and the production values just drop worse than a podcast. Anyways, so Maxine Waters, looking healthier than ever, is standing up here at a DoubleTree Inn podium. And behind her is a bunch of logos for some companies I recognize, like an organization in California and Pelican and others. And other companies, they look like mutual funds I've never even heard of, and hotels and service agencies. And Maxine Waters is addressing the crowd on a political issue, and she opens with what is now her typical...
Good afternoon. Reclaiming my time.
I don't know what it is, guys, but something about politicians being dickbags in hearings so that way they can make a scene in front of cameras and then parlaying that into a brand element. For some reason, that pisses me off.
Reclaiming my time.
I can't wait for her to run for president, guys. Can't wait for it. And of course, speaking of running for president, that stupid gun-running son of a bitch, Eric Holder. I'm not holding back anymore. Apparently, I'm angry now. She's got me worked up. Eric Holder is definitely considering running for president.
So I've asked you about pot, so now I have to ask you about running for president.
I couldn't find the pot clip, by the way. If you can find the Eric Holder pot clip, please tweet me at Chris Elias, this total preppy D-bag looking SOB. Oh my God, listen to me. Maxine got me so upset. I don't know something broke. My filter broke. I apologize. I will try to get control of myself again. But look at this guy with his face. I can't even with these people. And I believe he's from the New York Times. And they play this cuckold game where they try to get a little bit of a hint that they might be running for president. You see them do this to Democratic candidates for years before the race. It drives me crazy. Eric Holder, Mr. Contempt of Congress, is a corrupt son of a bitch. He was Obama's right-hand guy. He would be basically Obama's man in the White House if he were to run. It would be another Obama. It would be Obama's third term if Eric Holder were to run. Look up Fast and Furious, Eric Holder.
That's a logical connection.
Anyways, like I was saying, if you can find that pot clip, I'd like to see what Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, had to say about marijuana. Anyways, we continue on now to why I'm actually playing this clip.
When we first spoke about the redistricting committee, you said running for office was not in your future. And you've been much, much more ambiguous lately. And I wonder if you could just sort of talk through, if you were going to do it, why would you do it? If you didn't do it, why would you not do it?
You know what's funny is I've interviewed a fair amount of guests over the 11 years that I've been doing internet podcasting, and I'm not like some New York Times correspondent, but one of the things that I've always attempted to do, even if it was covered by somebody who I think does poor coverage, is before I interview somebody, I try to take in all of their previous interviews. I want to ask something that hasn't been asked. I want to find out something that is new. And it's part selfish. That's got a better chance of generating buzz. If you learn something new, people are more likely to share that, and everybody loves downloads. But also, that's my contribution. If I'm talking to a historical figure, I want to pull out of them something that wasn't already in the public domain. That's my goal. Otherwise, if you're a fan of Eric Holder and you've been following him and you're aware of what he's been saying, as apparently this guy is, then he's already been asked this exact question. He's been asked this exact question several times recently. In fact, you may have even discovered that we covered this exact question on this show just a few weeks ago. But perhaps the New York Times isn't that well sourced. Perhaps they don't have the capability to see what other media outlets are saying about the person they're about to interview. Or an alternative suggestion that just came to me off the top of my head is perhaps this is the narrative that they want to keep hammering over and over and over again. I'm not sure. What do you think?
If you were going to do it, why would you do it? If you didn't do it, why would you not do it?
If you were going to do it, why would you do it? If you weren't going to do it, why wouldn't you do it? That's a very, very specific kind of question. Almost like he knows he's answered this kind of question a dozen times, and he knows what the answer is, so he's able to set it up in an exact way in which Eric Holder can knock it out of the park.
If I were going to do it, I would do it because I would think, I would have concluded that I could maybe unify the country.
Yeah, the former lawman, the former the attorney general who looks like a weasel is going to unify the country.
That help unify the country, because it's bigger than any one person. That I could advance, that I could repair and then advance, the nation in a variety of contexts.
But, I haven't thought of this. It's just, I'm just thinking this off the top of my head. You notice some of that brain struggle in there.
Advance, the nation in a variety of contexts. That I thought I had something to, contribute. That would be, I think, the thing that would push me towards.
Yeah, like prison time.
Considering a run.
Like running guns to Mexico.
On the negative side, I've been in public life for fair amount of years. I remember some unpleasant hearings with some congressmen who are now leaving.
In other words, they would roll out those clips and play them over and over again in political attack ads, so I'm damaged goods.
I'm going to miss them. And, to subject myself and my family to that, again, would be, that could be a negative. It's an easy, for me, it was part of the job, right?
My family was never involved when I was in political careers before. As the Attorney General of the United fucking States of America, my family was never involved. But if I were to run for one office in particular, then all of a sudden my family's involved.
Read about, holders corrupt, holders, whatever. It's all politics, and I just dismiss it. But I saw the impact that it had on my family. My wife had a Google alert, and I said, "That's never sweetheart, you can't do that, because that you're going to just drag into, everything." And
like my affairs.
She took to heart.
She took to heart, guys. Took to heart.
Bothered her in a way that. It didn't necessarily bother me. And
she found out that I was a psychopath involved in arming Mexican cartels, which took human lives, and that really bothered her. But I'm a psychopath who doesn't feel anything, and I just emulate emotion.
In a way that, it didn't necessarily bother me. And the thought of going back into public life, that's something that I'd obviously have to consider.
Yeah, you would have to consider that. Because then who's going to suck your dick, huh, Eric? Yeah, you better figure that out, because that's the most damn important thing in deciding who's the president. Although Hillary, maybe she's the one to confer with, because according to Hillary, it's not that she's out of touch, it's not that she's corrupt, it's not that she's part of the banking elite, it's not that she was involved with disastrous situations in Libya and Syria. That's why, and of course it's not that her email was just this huge scandal the entire time. Or that the Clinton Foundation is a constant source of speculation about corruption. It's none of those things that caused her to lose the presidency, and it's none of those things that now has, and you saw me play the clips last week, forced the media to come out and say, okay, Hillary, enough's enough. Go away. Go take a long-term vacation. Let the next generation step up. You saw me play those clips last week. That's not what's going on, though. You see, simply, it's that Hillary's a woman.
Election was pretty traumatic.
The election was traumatic.
A lot of angst and second guessing and finger pointing. Oh my God, did you see how shrill she was?
People really didn't talk about her shrillness, actually. I specifically was watching for that because that would have been the sexist thing.
And second guessing and finger pointing. Oh my God, did you see how shrill she was? I took a lot of long walks in the woods.
Like I've used that one 1,000 times, and I had 1 or 2 trips in the woods, and now I can use it 1,000,000 times. Seriously, find me a single clip of somebody calling her shrill during the 2016 election.
Oh my God, did you see how shrill she was? I took a lot of long walks in the woods. Drank my share of Chardonnay.
She's a drunk.
I was really struck by how people said that to me. Go away, go away. They never said that to any man who was not elected. I am really committed to speaking out.
What about Ross Perot? Who is still calling for Mitt Romney? The establishment wants Mitt Romney, but there's no public figures that are calling for Mitt Romney. I can think of a lot of men who ran for office who were told to STFU, in fact, the majority of them.
And doing what I can to have a voice in the debate about where our country's going.
Okay, good. She's going to continue to do what she can to apparently destroy her party. But you see, all parties have problems. Hillary will be the very first person to pretend to make that disclaimer.
Both parties have their faults. I will premise what I'm about to say. And we can all do better. And I can certainly do better. Obviously,
I could not have ran my own email out of the bathroom of my IT guy until he moved it to some weird data center. I could have not done that. I could have not organized the murder of Gaddafi. I could have not done that. I could have not taken money from all of those special interests. I could have not created a corrupt foundation with my husband who's a pedophile. And I could have not invaded Syria. I could have not done those things, or I could have done those things. I'll be the first to admit that shit, because that's... Wait, what?
And we can all do better. And I can certainly do better. Obviously, in the heat of battle and political back and forth, I've said things that, I would like to take back.
Oh, that's it? That's all you're going to take back? The deplorables comment? That's it? out of all of the shit so the only mistake that you made in your entire election process that you failed to win was the deplorables comment? Really? Really? Oh, well, I guess I'll just scratch all this other stuff off this list that I had.
Political back and forth. I've said things that, I would like to take back. We all are like that. But I do worry that what's happened to the Republican Party is that it's being held captive by a very small group of powerful forces.
George Soros? No. Google.
We have seen the power of the NRA.
Oh, the NRA. I don't disagree that the NRA is influential, especially down at the local level. But if you look at the D.C. level, the NRA is not even in the top 10 of contributors. Google is, though. Google sure is. Google's in maybe the top 1 position, actually. But let's focus on the NRA. Let's focus, sure, yeah. Actually, let's stop here for a second, a little bit further. I actually think this is a huge sinkhole in the gun debate. We get onto the topic of the NRA and their influence over politicians, and it becomes all-consuming in the conversation. It just look at the money. Go to opensecrets.org, look at the NRA's contributions. I'm not downplaying the NRA as a force to pressure local politicians or to set up brand deals or anything like that, or to be a marketing force. I'm not downplaying any of that, and those are all very valuable things in a political discussion. But just go look at the money. If you just go look at the money,
Show me the money!
You'll see that the NRA isn't even in the top 10 of contributors to the politicians in D.C. The technology companies are spending way more money. Your Microsofts and your Googles. So if you're uncomfortable with the amount of money that the NRA is spending with politicians, then you better definitely be uncomfortable with the amount of money that your technology companies are spending, because they're making the NRA's contribution look like chump change. So keep that in mind when you hear these kinds of comments.
Of powerful forces. We have seen the power of the NRA, for example, and some of the very wealthy patrons of the Republican Party are so demanding. If you deviate from their stated requests, they will fund somebody to run against you in a Republican primary.
I feel like she's talking about Soros when she says those things. That's so weird. I mean, it's probably one and the same, right? When you have a financial master, they tend to probably behave in similar fashions, right or left. It's probably not a political thing. It's probably a human nature thing. So a lot of people have asked me this week what I think about Trump attacking Amazon this week. Have you heard about this story?
President Trump's growing attack on Amazon. The president on Twitter lashing out at one of the world's biggest retailers, and just like that, Amazon stock plunged. Our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, is here. And Rebecca, this war seems to be getting personal.
Yeah, that's right, Cecilia. This is the company where millions of Americans buy everything from electronics to paper towels. It is a stock that most Americans with a 401k own in their savings account, and the repeated Twitter attacks from the president are taking their toll.
I like that you see what they did there? Did you catch that? So Trump is screwing up your retirement funds because he's going after a good old-fashioned American company. Have no illusions about Amazon, my friends. Have no illusions. Amazon was created by a bunch of bankers that are extremely rich, that had every single intention of taking over all of retail. They intentionally started with books because that was Jeff Bezos' advice, and they grew from there. And they didn't give any shits if he ever made a profit. He was funded by a group of bankers and given the green light to just burn cash. So I'm buying shit from Amazon all the time. I just got packages from Amazon today. So it's not like I'm taking some sort of moral high ground here. But let's not kid ourselves. This isn't like a good old-fashioned American company that we used to think of. This is an entirely different beast. And your 401k is going to be fine, regardless of what happens to Amazon. I don't know why ABC feels like they need to make that connection. Maybe they're just concerned that you're too ADD. Perhaps they don't think you're intelligent enough to pay attention to this story if they don't make it about you. I'm not sure why they're making that correlation. Maybe it's just an easy way to shit on Trump when they don't have one.
Own in their savings savings account, and the repeated Twitter attacks from the president are taking their toll.
You're fucked.
President Trump threatening major changes for Amazon. On Monday, tweeting, "Only fools or worse are saying that our money-losing post office makes money with Amazon. They lose a fortune, and this will be changed. Also, our fully tax-paying retailers are closing stores all over the country. Not a level playing field."
That's what it's about right there.
It's all part of a tweet storm aimed at the tech titan. The president suggesting rate hikes for shipping Amazon packages, sending shares of Amazon spiraling down more than 5%.
Oh, God.
Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, who also owns the Washington Post, once invited to be on the president's tech council, now caught in the crosshairs. So exactly how much money is the Postal Service losing on its deal with Amazon? According to its own website, by law, the Postal Service must cover its costs on all deliveries, including Amazon packages. Amazon, which uses the Postal Service in the final leg of package delivery, does get a high-volume discount. Also at issue, taxes. While Amazon paid a total of $957 million worldwide last year and collects sales taxes in
Worldwide. Why quote the worldwide?
the 45 states which require it, in most states, the tech titan does not collect taxes on the products third-party vendors sell through its site, roughly half its volume. A significant advantage the e-commerce giant has over traditional brick-and-mortar competitors, and a point Trump frequently campaigned on.
In the meantime, your department stores are all going out of business because it's unfair competition.
Last year, a record 7,000 stores closed and retailers cut 67,000 jobs overall, while Amazon announced it would be adding 100,000 jobs by mid-2018, so mid this year, Cecilia.
And as the president was tweeting, we saw those Amazon stocks fall yesterday. Other tech stocks are taking a hit. How much of this has to do with what they might be seeing as uncertainty about what's happening in Washington?
Well, that's certainly a part of it, Cecilia. Overall, tech stocks have been dropping in recent weeks, and we've seen that with Facebook, Netflix, Apple, of course, Amazon, which we're talking about
Yeah,
here.
but we can spin it as if it's Trump's fault, so shut up. I love Steve's point, by the way, in the chat room. Great point by Steve. I think if you want to join us live, too, jblive.tv on a Wednesday, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for our live time. Steve says, how has Amazon and Google avoided the antitrust lawsuit like the Microsoft and Internet Explorer one? I'm not advocating that they should bust up Amazon or anything like that, although... Wow, I bet, Steve, you should make a prediction there. I bet we could hear a conversation at some point in the future. Should the Amazon Web Services division be broken up from the retail division? I could see that. I could see that becoming a conversation. I mean, damn, guys, we went after Microsoft for bundling Internet Explorer into Windows, i.e., now every operating system on the planet, even brand new baby open source operating systems, ship with a browser. Okay, some of them, like WebOS, are completely built around a browser. Like you literally cannot divorce the browser from the operating system. And Microsoft got taken to court for that. So could Amazon? Yeah. See, in the background, what's going on with all of this is there's a huge Pentagon deal on the line. You probably know that Amazon's AWS has a isolated network that they run for the CIA. It's billions of dollars worth of services that the CIA is buying from Amazon. You probably knew that. And you probably also knew that Jeff Bezos is the owner of the Washington Post, who's also the owner of Amazon. So this is a weird relationship. And going on right now, as we speak, is a renegotiation with Amazon to expand the Pentagon services with the Amazon Web Services infrastructure.
Every night this week, we'll be bringing you a piece of our series Tech Tyranny.
Jesus Christ.
Covering the ways that powerful tech companies are dominating American life in a way that has never happened before.
Okay, I guess. I mean, thanks, Facebook and Twitter. I mean, think about this, right? The president makes statements on Twitter. You find out that Michael Jackson dies on Twitter. Facebook is, used as a Russian propaganda platform for a half a dozen bots that are totally ineffective. Tech tyranny.
In American history, most people are ignoring it. They shouldn't be. It's changing everything. Amazon's power over data is so great now that even the U.S. military is seeking their help. Within a few weeks, the Defense Department is expected to request a $10 billion contract that will allow Amazon to become the sole provider of cloud computing services to the military. What does this mean? A story we're not going to ignore. Matt Stoller is a fellow with Citizens Against Monopoly, and he joins us tonight. Matt, this is one of those stories that, like a lot of stories right now, they're just kind of passing people by. And no one's stopping to say, well, what is this and what are the implications of it? So let me ask, what is this and what are the implications of this?
So this is what the Pentagon calls a potential revolution in how they buy information technology. And information technology is the heart of everything right now,
yes,
including war. So this is a decision by the Pentagon, or potential decision by the Pentagon, to do something very unusual, which is to not have multiple suppliers of a key resource that they rely on, in this case, data. And they are handing over an important bottleneck of our national security to Jeff Bezos and Amazon. And that's something that should be very concerning to people, because Jeff Bezos has relationships, Amazon has relationships all over the world with all sorts of entities that could that have a reason to manipulate and undermine American national security interests. And even if they don't, even if Amazon does a great job and we have no other redundant cloud computing services, last year, because of a typo in an Amazon data center, a whole bunch of websites, 150,000 websites went down, including big ones like Pinterest, parts of Slack, and even the Securities and Exchange Commission. So it is a really dangerous thing to award a contract over such a vital resource to just one company.
Now, I can see that argument. I guess you have to ask yourself, who's going to do a better job? Is the U.S. government going to do a better job of running a super secure, omnipresent online database and probably all kinds of web services, email, all kinds of apps, I would imagine, that they need to get access to all around the world? Is the U.S. government better suited at doing that job, or is Amazon? And then you also have to ask yourself, well, shouldn't they be prepared for an outage regardless of who's host? I mean, if they go spin up half a dozen DigitalOcean droplets, or they go host it on Rackspace or Linode, or they go roll their own systems in some data center somewhere in Grand Forks, North Dakota, they sure as shit better have a backup plan, some sort of continuity backup plan if the systems go down. So the fear is on that aspect, I feel like, is hype. What makes me uncomfortable is that Amazon will have this multiple tens of billions of dollars worth of contracts with the federal government. And it's like the Pentagon and CIA. And that's, what does that do to Amazon? That aligns their interest to now their number one client, by a large margin, the U.S. government. Well, I've worked in the client services industry for a long time, and I can tell you that your number one, number two, number three, number four clients, your top four clients, who could represent in total 40, 50, 70% of your overall income, you will do whatever they want because they are vital. They have what established your core revenue. That's what brings in your baseline revenue right there. That's what you're now doing your payroll and your infrastructure costs on. The new clients that you take on, the ones that are representing the bottom of your revenue, are what you use to finance expansion. That's generally how it works in these technology companies. I've seen it several times in different iterations. And if the U.S. government also wants some company, some large technology company, to play ball in some backdoor encryption scheme that they're trying to get to take off across the world, Amazon would probably very likely be encouraged to be one of the primary adopters and supporters and cheerleaders of that kind of initiative. Amazon is going to be incentivized to work with legal proceedings when they need to give access to what a customer's records are. It just makes me uncomfortable about Amazon. I at the same time, I'm perhaps sort of like in like some sort of hypocritical way. I almost think it's better for the U.S. government to outsource to a privatized AWS that's specifically been purpose-built for them. It's just going to be something that Amazon is clearly better at doing than the federal government will be. And it's something that can be maintained and kept up to date and patched, which is incredibly important as these agencies go online. And I don't believe they are staffed well enough to keep their systems up to date and current with new technology trends. You know, when Meltdown Inspector comes out, Amazon's doing rolling outages on AWS to update their VMs before it's even public knowledge. It's not that the federal government couldn't do that. It's just that they don't. They don't have the resources. And that is the level of maintenance and care that you need to take when you have so much shit online. So I'm not totally against them working with some hosting provider. I just wish it wasn't Jeff Bezos and Amazon, because they're starting to creep the hell out of me. Especially with control of the Washington Post, because then you have a close ally of the federal government who's also controlling a massive news outlet. And that news outlet tends to report about Donald Trump very negatively. And so I'm not so sure how I feel about any of it. And I just want good, clear, and really all I want is just good, clear divisions between all of this stuff. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying make it clear. You know, if Amazon or somebody could just make some sort of statement about how, like, they've isolated it off, or it's like a subdivision of Amazon that manages all of this, so it won't be influencing corporate decisions. Something like that would make this entire thing better. But right now, it just looks like Amazon's becoming the next utility company, and the utility they're selling is services, and they're going to get rich, and they're going to get essentially a locked-in monopoly thanks to the federal government. And that I'm not as comfortable with.
Begin with breaking news. President Trump clarifying his position on U.S. involvement in Syria. A senior administration official telling CNN that Mr. Trump has told his national security team that he's willing to keep American troops in the war-torn nation for now, but he wants them out soon. And this is coming after we heard mixed messages about the administration's policy on Syria. CNN's Caitlin Collins is live for us at the White House. Tell us about this meeting, Caitlin.
Yeah, that's right, Brianna. Some brand new information from my colleague Kevin Liptak, who says during that meeting with his national security team at the White House here yesterday, the president said he is willing to keep troops in Syria for the short term, but maintained that overall he wants to cut an exit in Syria.
It's already reminding me of Obama in Afghanistan. How about you? Did you get that sense too? Like, it's all of a sudden we're doing this again. That slow, we're going to get out of there. We're going to get out of there. And then political pressure will build, and then maybe right before the re-election time, he pulls troops out of Syria, and it gives him a bump. It just really is the same script over and over again. Let's talk about something interesting happening, though, in Bob's Probe.
Back to other news. A lawyer with ties to former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort is headed for prison. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live tonight with a landmark decision in the Russia Special Counsel investigation. Good evening, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Brett. This morning, 33-year-old Alex van der Zwaan entered federal court here in Washington, D.C., where he was sentenced for lying to federal investigators. That carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. But instead, the London-based attorney, whose father-in-law is a Russian oligarch with ties to President Putin, got 30 days in prison, a $20,000 fine, and 2 months of supervised release. The Dutch lawyer worked with Rick Gates, the former business partner of Paul Manafort. Gates is now cooperating with special counsel investigators.
That's so this guy is officially, 4 hops away from Trump, and he's 1 hop away from Manafort.
Mr. van der Zwaan also worked with Manafort, who was briefly the Trump campaign chairman and now faces money laundering and tax fraud charges. Based on court filings, special counsel investigators are exploring contacts between the 3 men and a suspected operative for Russian intelligence. A newly public memo for the first time explains the broad authorities that allow the special counsel to investigate events prior to the 2016 campaign. The 4-page memo was drafted by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein in August 2017. With entire sections blacked out with visible shows, Rosenstein gave Mueller the power to go beyond allegations of Russian collusion to Manafort's work in the Ukraine and allegations that he, quote, committed a crime or crimes arising out of payments he received from the Ukrainian government before and during the tenure of President Viktor Yanukovych. In a separate development today, the wife of fired FBI Director Andrew McCabe went on the record calling last year a nightmare for her family. Writing in the Washington Post, Dr. Jill McCabe, who ran unsuccessfully for a Virginia State Senate seat in 2015, said her husband did not campaign for her despite this widely circulated photo she said was meant for family and friends. Dr. McCabe also said the FBI ethics panel concluded there was no conflict for her husband when she received more than $600,000 from Democrats, including a longtime Clinton ally, because her husband's involvement in the Clinton email case came after the contributions were made and the race was over.
Oh, totally. Then it's Fine, then. Yeah, did you catch that?
Husband's involvement in the Clinton email case came after the contributions were made and the race was over. Quote, I've spent countless hours trying to understand how the president and so many others can share such destructive lies about me.
Because you have a horrible husband who was involved with a corrupt situation. Wake up, girl. Don't you see that? I mean, like, you gotta, not only do you gotta wake up, but then you gotta wake up and you gotta stay woke.
I want people to know that the whole story that everything is based on is just false and utterly absurd.
Of course, just like all of them always are. Of course. And your husband's been telling you that too, hasn't he?
But Bureau critics say the ethics findings were wrong and indicate a culture problem among senior FBI executives, Brett.
Oh.
Right, Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
No. She was really fired up there, wasn't she? I don't know why she doesn't have a prop anymore. I wish she had that memo in hand. I could tell she was shuffling papers, but she never held them up. I'm always watching for that. There was a moment that happened this week that the whole internet was really enjoying. It was Donald Trump during Easter.
And it's a great, great place. It's an honor to have everybody on behalf of the Trump family, many of whom are with us right here in the audience.
So the Easter Bunny is standing next to Donald Trump and the First Lady, and he's a gasp. His mouth is a gasp. Like he looks like he has just seen a human penis for the first time, and this bunny did not expect it.
I just want to thank you. This is a special year. Our country is doing great.
Okay, so you're like, yeah, okay, he's giving us a nice Easter talk. This is good.
You look at the economy, you look at what's happening.
Uh-huh.
Nothing's ever easy, but we have never had an economy like we have right now, and we're going to make it bigger and better and stronger. Our military
What?
is now at a level, will soon be at a level that it's never been before.
This is Easter, though.
It's, you see what's happening, and
What?
you see what's happening with funding. The funding of our military was so important.
Remember when how I seem to recall a time, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but I seem to recall a time when we were upset about how much money we spend on our military, that we thought it was too much money. But now it's a point of national pride on Easter Sunday?
See what's happening with funding. The funding of our military was so important, and so many military people are with us today. So just think of $700 billion, because that's all going into our military this year. So I want to thank you all for being here.
Why would he do that? Why would he do that? What is wrong with his mouth?
Because that's all going into our military. Just think of $700 billion.
And the visuals of this. You have Melania, who looks like she's physically there. And then you have the Easter Bunny, who is still fixated on his first human penis 30 years into life. And you have Donald Trump talking about spending $700 billion on the military. For what exactly? There's never been a visual like this in the history of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching the visual version, take a moment to look at this. And if you've just been listening, when you get somewhere, fire up an image search and look for this, because this represents the shit show that is 2018 in one video frame, and it's quite remarkable.
People are with us today, so just think of $700 billion, because that's all going into our military this year. So I want to thank you all for being here. The band, unbelievable. I love you people. I hear them a lot.
They're just so weird. That is the weirdest. That is so weird. I don't even know what to do with that. That's so funny with that bunny there, too. All right. There was a story this week that I'm going to bet has two elements for the audience. In majority, not all of you. I bet some of you already were way hip to this. But I bet this week was one of the first or second times you've ever heard the name Sinclair Broadcasting or Sinclair Broadcast Group. I bet Sinclair might be maybe the first time you've heard that name this week. But the idea that's been floating around, the meme, the video of all of the news actors saying the same line over and over again is probably nothing new to the Unfiltered audience. Conan's been doing bits on this for a long, long time. John Oliver's done it. The Daily Show's done it. We've done it. I mean, like, everybody has done this. So that's not new to the audience, but the mainstream media sure noticed this week, didn't they?
tonight, the biggest owner of local TV stations in the country fighting back after criticism that its anchors were forced to read scripts on the air promoting a pro-Trump agenda. The promo read on Sinclair Broadcasting-owned stations brought to light how, thanks to a now viral video put out by the website Deadspin. Take a look.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I'm sure you've seen this a lot. It's been getting passed around. If you want, you can go look for Deadspin and the Sinclair Broadcasting on YouTube to watch the whole thing. It's pretty good. I have it in the supporter sync as well.
I want to mention that most of the Sinclair stations are also CNN affiliates. Brian Stelter is out front with more.
So she makes a bit of a baby disclaimer there. So I want to make sure you hear it.
Stations are also CNN affiliates.
So a lot of the Sinclair stations are also CNN affiliates. She gets halfway there on the disclaimer. She fails to make the complete disclaimer. The complete disclaimer that you need to know going into this, and my friends, go Google this yourselves, Sinclair Broadcasting Group would like to buy Turner Media. Now, do you know who Turner Media owns? I bet you do. CNN. So you see, Brian Seltzerwater has been breaking the news on this story since December. Although, as I've just covered, Conan, The Daily Show, here, this very show, has been covering this topic for years. Everybody knows it. It's all of a sudden come up on CNN, even though they're attacking some of their own partners. See, keep that awkward position in mind. They are essentially going after some of their own buddies.
I want to mention that most of the Sinclair stations are also CNN affiliates.
So most of them are working with CNN. They are attacking their own affiliates in this piece. Why would they do that? Is it because they're honest journalists that are telling you like it is? No. It's because Sinclair Media Group wants to buy, the Sinclair Broadcast Group, wants to buy Turner Media, and Turner Media owns CNN. And this has been going on for months. It's been going on for months. And as soon as it started happening, CNN started talking tough about Sinclair. They're trying to sabotage the deal. And rightfully so. They should. It's a bad deal. We don't want Sinclair owning all of the media. That's not a good thing. Although I think this stuff's so fucked anyways, it doesn't matter at this point. Might as well accelerate its own death so that way we can burn it all to the ground and something new can rise up. But in the meantime, the shit show continues. And they're not telling you that they 100% have a total stake in this, and they are trying to torpedo the deal because they don't want to be owned by a conservative company because they are a bunch of liberal nutbags at CNN.
Brian Stelter is out front with more.
A broadcasting behemoth with many critics. Some now calling it a propaganda arm for the Trump administration.
Okay.
With around 200 stations, Sinclair is the biggest local TV player in the country. Today, it reaches more than a third of U.S. households, and it's trying to get bigger, awaiting government approval for its takeover of Tribune Media. The company's conservative bent is becoming more visible, with promos echoing Trump's anti-media rhetoric.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about the troublemaking and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
That viral mashup is just the latest example. Stations are required to run terrorism alert desk segments about security threats. These are known as must-runs inside Sinclair.
Here's the bottom line.
Also must run these rah-rah commentaries from former Trump campaign advisor Boris Epshteyn.
The president is here to get results and not to coddle staff or cabinet members.
During the presidential campaign, Jared Kushner reportedly inked a deal with Sinclair for better coverage. Sinclair calls that a mischaracterization. But the company's politics are no secret. It's controlled by Executive Chairman David Smith and his family. With his brothers in the early 90s, Smith built his father's 3 TV stations into a mega broadcaster.
How many of your stations are in the top 20 markets?
Well, we're in Baltimore to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, with the vast majority of them being middle markets, the Flint, Michigans, Kansas Cities, Birmingham.
His views radiate out to local stations, sometimes creating tension between management and local journalists. Some local staffers are expressing anger about recent corporate mandates, with one telling me, quote, "It sickens me the way this company is encroaching upon trusted news brands in rural markets." Responding to the uproar, Sinclair sent a memo to stations. It says, quote, "We are focused on fact-based reporting," and it calls the goal of those now viral promos to reiterate our commitment to reporting facts in a pursuit of truth. A bit like the Fox Fair and Balance slogan. It's innocuous sounding, but everyone knows what it really means. Tonight, we know one staffer at a station has resigned as a result. We know another station up in Wisconsin refused to air these promos. The company's dealing with the fallout from this, and I'm hearing from staffers all across the country in these local newsrooms who just feel deeply uncomfortable having to broadcast this.
All right, Brian, thank you very much. And I want to go now to Deadspin video editor Tim Burke, where you saw all of those anchors on the screen echoing each other.
You know, isn't it? I mean, it's so funny, like, when these things arise, because, like, part of me is like, F yeah, man, let everybody know about it. The more people, the merrier. Finally, somebody with a bigger megaphone than I is talking about this issue. Yeah. And then part of me's like, you hypocritical sons of bitches have your own agenda here. And even when you're trying to play like you're being the watchdogs of the media, you're actually pushing your own agenda. And I'm offended by watching it. And the context of this entire situation is as if none of this was ever known before until these sons of bitches over at Deadspin put this together. And it just bothers me. But at the same time, like I said, I'm glad they're talking about it. It's a weird thing. Well, it's good timing. If you want to go look a little more, go look at Sinclair. I think I might have some links in the show notes. Unfiltered.show/275. But I wouldn't be surprised if it slows this whole thing down a little more. That is what I would expect to happen. So speaking of local news, I learned about the Atlanta ransomware attack via local news last week. So let's do an update on that cyber story.
Atlanta is still picking up the pieces after a ransomware attack targeted the city's computer systems. Hackers are demanding a ransom in return for restoring control of the computer systems and critical city databases. Ashley Banks has more tonight.
According to authorities, the SamSam hacking crew hacked government computers in the city of Atlanta, crippling computer and wireless networks. As a result of the hack, city courts have remained closed for a week, and police officers are writing their reports by hand. In addition, Atlanta residents can't pay bills online or use Wi-Fi at the airport. What's more alarming for city officials is the SamSam hacking crew has encrypted some of the government's data, and if the city doesn't pay the hackers $51,000 in Bitcoin, they may not regain control of sensitive information.
So what that means is that they don't have a backup. That's what that means. I've talked about this before. I'm sorry for those of you that listen to TechSnap and the other shows, but the only solution to ransomware is just to have good backups, just to have good backups that are off-site. And then if all of your data gets encrypted, you just delete it and then restore the good data. That's something the federal government and state governments should absolutely have locked down. Now, this was the city of Atlanta. I would argue that even a city should have the resources to have at least a Carbonite plan. You know, go to Tarsnap and back up your stuff. Use ZFS, take snapshots, use Windows shadow copies. There are options here that you can take advantage of that don't require millions of dollars of AWS infrastructure with agreements with the Pentagon. Just back up your data.
Dollars in Bitcoin, they may not regain control of sensitive information. I spoke with Georgia House of Representatives Erica Thomas, and I asked her, how severe was this attack?
I would say that this attack is severe, because it was not expected. In a day and age where cyber terrorism is running very, very rampant, we have to make sure that any link that we click on or any email that we open has to be under scrutiny as if it could be a cyber attack.
So let's keep in mind that we're talking about ransomware. And ransomware, and she said it right there, is typically user invoked. It's not an active attack. The end user clicks a link, they read an email, and they click a link in the email, they download a program, they want to play games on their computer, they want a new background, a new screensaver. I mean, it's usually really just sort of innocuous, like no big deal, just wanted to do something, and then boom, you spread it. And then anywhere that your user account has access to gets encrypted. So if you don't have really good file permissions, if you don't take advantage of user groups and segment people off into users and administrators, like every department would have a group at least at the places I worked. So that way they had their shared files they had access to, but they couldn't get access to, say, HR's files when they're in the engineering department. But if your network is designed sort of flat from both a topology standpoint and from a shares and network file system standpoint, it is possible for anyone, maybe it's the receptionist who's killing a little bit of time because nobody's walked in the front door in the last couple of hours. They click a link, and the first thing that gets ransomwared is their C drive. But pretty quickly after that, it goes to their network drives, and it starts encrypting everything on their remote file server. And that is such an easy, basic thing to prevent. It's such a basic thing to prevent. It is not an advanced attack. And so, is it cyber terrorism? I guess you could call it that. But I actually think maybe a more appropriate description would be negligence. It's simply negligence. It's negligence on the end user, and it's negligence on the network implementation. Cyber terrorism, I guess, could be one interpretation, but I would just say negligence. But what do I know? Moving on, I want to talk. I got not one, not two, but three of my favorite moments in the media. This is one of my favorite ways to wrap up the overtime. And this one, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if it's just we have a really, really timid president, not Trump, but one of the visiting presidents, or if Trump wasn't aware that there's a delay in translation. I don't know what's going on in this clip. I will play it and leave it up to you. I'll paint a picture, though. Press conference. Donald Trump is meeting with the Baltic leaders, and they're all doing a press conference at the White House. And it's now time for questions. Trump has just answered something. And he says, you know what, let's throw it to one of you guys. Why don't you pick one of your own media? Don't use our fake news media. And then you can tell that Trump isn't waiting for the translation. So I suspect it's translation delay. But let me know what you think in the comments or in the chat room if you're watching live.
Any political dialogue.
Because he speaks English. So I don't, the translation delay... It's one of those things where, like, maybe he knows, like, exactly what he needs to say, and he knows how to say that in English, but I doubt it. So I don't know. You guys tell me what you think.
Any political dialogue with our eastern neighbor, Russia.
By the way, he's from Latvia.
Pick a reporter, please. You could pick a reporter.
And then he looks at Trump and he does like a gesture with his hands, like I don't know.
Baltic reporter, ideally. Real news, not fake news.
But he laughs when he says that. The guy laughs, so he is understanding.
A Baltic reporter, ideally. Real news, not fake news. Go ahead.
But then he doesn't do it, and Donald Trump, being a showman, he's very media aware. He's killing time. Like the one thing you don't want is dead air. You don't want dead air. That's awkward, and a good host prevents dead air. And he does one of these sort of showmen, like he's pulling at his collar, like yeah. But now you can hear there's some sort of translation happening in the background that I think is being fed to him. Listen carefully. But then he jumps in before the translation finishes.
Want to pick? I think we have enough. Do we have enough? Yes? Yeah. Go ahead.
And then he says, yeah. He says, yeah. So maybe he just didn't want to take any more questions.
Pick, Mr. President, pick a reporter from the Baltics. Not the same man.
So then Trump tells him, pick a reporter. Pick a reporter, like I was telling you to, man.
It was very tough. Go ahead, pick a reporter.
He says, I see, I don't know.
Okay, I can.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, please.
And then he gets weird, and Trump realizes that the guy's like cracking, and so then Trump picks the reporter for him before he has a chance to really say anything.
Okay, I can.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Arnold.
It makes me wonder if any of these people actually run their own country. Do any of them run their own country? Like, the further you get out from the Western... I won't even get into it. You know what? I'm not going to say it. People give me shit. But you watch this and tell me what you think. I'll back it up a couple of seconds. Listen to this. Please tell me what you think. Let me know in the comments, because I'm trying to put this together. This seems super awkward to me.
Go ahead, pick a reporter.
Okay, I can.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Arnold. I'm from Latvia. So I have a question for our president.
So she has a question for the very guy that couldn't pick a reporter that Trump picked. I don't know what that is. I could have my own conspiracies, but I got to leave room for Jim Acosta. Jim Acosta is the man of the hour with the conspiracy theories. Here is a moment in broadcast journalism, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Acosta loses connection and then, like a dick, tries to imply it's the White House's fault. Let's play this moment of beauty.
And he pointed out the U.S. expelled 60 Russian diplomats. Germany expelled 4. France expelled 4. Took a little swipe at those NATO allies as well. Jim Acosta is there. Jim, I take it you're in the East Room over at the White House?
That's right, Wolf. And it was a pretty remarkable exchange, as you saw there at the very end. The president was egging on the president of Latvia to call on a Baltic reporter, not one of the U.S. reporters who were all clamoring to get that final question.
Uh-oh, he gets cut off. He gets cut off.
Looks like we just lost our connection with Jim Acosta at the White House, but he was making a point, John Kirby, that the president sort of jokingly, when he...
So then they go to Kirby, right? They fill air. Check this out. They fill air for this entire time. Not that the White House correspondence area is super busy. There's lots of people trying to broadcast. No. They get Jim Acosta back. It must be a conspiracy.
Mexican border right now. He said, we don't have laws. We have catch and release. We have to secure our border. That's something we have to do. I think we've reestablished communications with Jim Acosta, our chief White House correspondent. Jim, you were making a point when all of a sudden we lost that connection. Go ahead.
That's right. We won't read into why we lost connection there just a few moments ago. But I
no. Never do that. Never. No, but of course, if I have a conspiracy, I'm a son of a bitch, apparently. I love you, CNN. I want to give you so many hugs right now, Jim. I want to give you so many hugs. You guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to leave you with one moment of brilliance from our President of the United States.
Cross borders, we need walls. We started building our wall. I'm so proud of it. We started. We have 1.6 billion. And we've already started. You saw the pictures yesterday. I said, what a thing of beauty. And on September 28th, we go further, and we're getting that sucker built. And you think that's easy? People said, oh, has he given up on the wall? No, I never give up. We have 1.6 billion toward the wall, and we've done the planning. And you saw those beautiful pictures, and that wall looks good. It's properly designed. That's what I do, is I build. I was always very good at building. It was always my best thing. I think better than being president, I was maybe good at building. Like you people, you're good at building. I think maybe we'll be better at president, David. That would be good.
All right, so I have a couple of live stream clips I want to play for you guys, and of course, Mr. Chase is getting close, so it's all working out. The time is really good. Let's get to these live stream exclusives. So let's see here. I think I wanted to hold this one for you. So Laura Ingraham got in trouble, and this was her finally coming around to apologizing.
Parkland shooting survivor David Hogg told TMZ he'd been rejected by 4 University of California campuses.
So it's been kind of annoying having to deal with that and everything else that's been going on. But at this point, I was, we're changing the world.
Fox News host Laura Ingraham slamming him for whining about it. Hogg then posted a list of what he said were Ingram's top sponsors, calling for them to boycott her show. So far, at least 4 companies have bailed. Nutrish, Rachel Ray's pet food brand, says it's pulling its ads because the comments she has made are not consistent with how we feel people should be treated. Hogg has been one of the most outspoken student activists for tighter gun laws.
And the fact that so many children are dying in these mass shootings, and it's unacceptable.
Ingraham is no stranger to controversy.
Shut up and dribble.
Just last month, she blasted NBA superstar LeBron James for talking politics. But today, a rare apology from Ingraham. On reflection, in the spirit of Holy Week, I apologize for any upset or hurt my tweet caused him or any of the brave victims of Parkland. Hogg not satisfied. An apology in an effort to just save your advertisers is not enough. He says his calls for a boycott will continue. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News.
Hey, NBC News fans.
I wouldn't really classify myself as an NBC News fan there, Lester. All right, so moving on from Lester, let's keep going. Can you do that? That was pretty good, wasn't it? Don't you think? All right, so I was all in on this clip until a moment in this clip where I'm like, did you just fucking say that? Tell me if, in the chat room, let me know if you know what moment where Chris goes, the fuck?
In Oklahoma, public school teachers say it's a matter of math. More money is needed for education to help students in the classroom, and they are taking their case to state lawmakers. Omar Villafranca is in Oklahoma City tonight.
Today, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin signed a bill giving teacher support staff, like teacher aides and janitors, a $1,250 raise. Last week, she signed a measure that gave teachers a $6,000 pay raise, but only added an additional $50 million to school funding. Teachers were asking for $200 million more.
Okay. Teachers want more.
Sure. Yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah. Okay, so see if you can guess what part of this got me.
Funding. Teachers were asking for $200 million more.
Teachers want more, but it's kind of like having a teenage kid that wants a better car.
But their car has been taken away over the last 10 years.
Well, it has been a difficult time, and that's why I'm very proud that this year we were able to get something done.
They're like a teenager who wants a new car.
A difficult time, wants a better car.
No, they're not. They're adults who are trying to make a living. And maybe with your goddamn pantsuit and your fucking $70 haircut, and by the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, but your fucking marble trim on the wall back there, maybe you could just cut some of that marble off the wall and sell it and give that to the teachers. When I saw that, when this nice lady who looks like she makes a lot of money is sitting in a room with a chair that looks like it probably cost $100 with marble molding on the floors, I'm not like more taxes, but like if you're gonna spend money, how about instead of $700 billion on the military, how about $650? And we take another 50 bill of that and we make some sort of federal program. And I don't even care if you want to bring Common Core back, but for God's sakes, pay the teachers more.
More.
Teachers want more, but it's kind of like having a teenage kid that wants a better car.
But their car has been taken away over the last 10 years.
Well, it has been a difficult time, and that's why I'm very proud that this year we were able to get something done for our teachers.
This is drawing a line in the sand for the future of Oklahoma.
Teachers turned into lobbyists, crowding the hallways and waiting in line to meet with almost every state lawmaker.
So do we need to go back to that other hallway and to the very end?
Liz Hoggett and her fellow teachers from the Norman Public Schools went office to office, leaving notes and letters for legislators, asking for more school funding.
Is he going to be able to see us?
They waited more than an hour to meet with their state senator.
Hi, Senator Standridge. Hello. I'm one of your constituents, and I really wanted to talk to you today. We have an appointment at 1:20.
No, we're going to have to reschedule.
But he had to leave for a roll call. The third-generation teacher says she's frustrated, but doesn't plan to give up. What do you just want him to hear?
I want him to hear that we are not going anywhere.
and we're doing this for our kids.
Omar, I know you've been there since the strike began. Any end in sight for these protests?
Not really, Jeff, because teachers and students plan to be back here tomorrow. And in fact, some teachers were telling me they're willing to use their sick days to come down to the Capitol so they can keep pressure on the lawmakers. Jeff?
Oh!
No more thing.
Thanks so much, because I care with this green screen background behind me. Thanks so much. All right, here's another great moment. This could have made the overtime as far as my favorite moments recently in the media. I did have a third clip, but did I play it? Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I played it at the end. All right. I should have played this in the overtime.
Probably nobody's been tougher to Russia than Donald Trump.
Probably. You know, when I'm not even making a statement on the president here. I am just literally telling you my life experience as a parent. When my kids say, well, it was probably Abby's fault, it means it wasn't Abby's fault. You know, if my son says it was probably my sister's fault, it's not my sister's fault. That's not how it works. Well, I mean his sister.
Probably nobody's been tougher to Russia than Donald Trump. We've been
Probably.
very tough on Russia, frankly. Nobody has been tougher on Russia. Nobody's been tougher on Russia than I have. And you can, and I know you're nodding yes, because everyone agrees. There's nobody been tougher on Russia.
Remarkable, the American president on the subject of Russia today. He made those comments while in the company of the leaders of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, 3 countries bordering Russia, wary about their next-door neighbor. They know a thing or two about how the Kremlin spreads its influence. Trump now faces an expanding investigation by the special counsel, and he's been criticized for appearing to cozy up to the Russian president. So his remarks today, made in an effort to reassure Baltic leaders of his willingness to confront Russia, may end up raising more questions about what exactly is U.S. policy toward the Kremlin. Here is how he responded to a question about inviting the Russian leader to the White House.
Thank you very much.
Market volatility?
We want to be able, if possible, and this is speaking with the Baltic states, ideally we want to be able to get along with Russia. We're going to find out whether or not we do. But if we could all get along, that would be great. Getting along with Russia would be a good thing, not a bad thing. And just about everybody agrees to that, except very stupid people.
Then there was this about his relationship with Vladimir Putin.
How do you see Vladimir Putin? Is he a friend or a foe?
We'll find out. I'll let you know. I mean, it'll be a time when I'll let you know. You're going to find out very quickly. I think I could have a very good relationship with President Putin. I think. It's possible I won't, and you will know about it. Believe me, this room will know about it before I know about it. I think I could have a very good relationship with Russia and with President Putin, and if I did, that would be a great thing. And there's also a great possibility that that won't happen. Who knows? Okay?
The president's remarks came after the White House hit Russia with sanctions for election meddling and cyber attacks and expelled Russian diplomats in response to this poisoning of a former Russian spy and his daughter in England in broad daylight last month. Today, Vladimir Putin called for an investigation into that poisoning and demanded that Russia play a role in that inquiry. Gotta love that. Putin also cast doubt on reports of Russia's involvement in that attack, while he is accusing the West of launching an anti-Russia campaign. Clint Watts, a former FBI agent and a friend of this broadcast, has been closely watching the evolution of Putin's handling of Donald Trump. Today, Clint Watts wrote this in an op-ed for the New York Times, which we commend to your attention. Quote, in Trump and his campaign, Mr. Putin spotted a golden opportunity.
Oh, Bri-Y.
Who did this?
Who?
What's this?
Dude, I don't know what that is. That almost deserves a picture. That is.
What'd you do here?
I didn't do that.
You did this.
Okay, I think you got to unplug the mic.
Yeah. So.
All right, I'm muting you for a second. Yeah, go for it. That is, I don't even.
What professionals run this place?
Some asshole that didn't even bother fixing that.
Intern.
I know, dude. Actually, the problem is I don't have an intern, because then I could blame it on the intern.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, blame it on the intern. I tell you what. So I didn't get a chance to, so I listened to the No Agenda show.
Oh, are we talking about that now?
Well, yeah, because I didn't get a chance to clip it.
Is this overtime? Or are we just talking?
No, we're just
we're
live.
done. Okay.
But I do publish the live stream on the
okay.
Patreon for anybody public.
Oh, okay. So I shouldn't talk anything. I got it.
But you know what? So in their latest episode, they did a make good, and Dvorak actually went back and listened to the episode, and they played a clip where you explained that we found each other via No Agenda.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I feel like they took care of it. We don't really need to address it.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. Although I'm a little butthurt that they so like Adam for 30 seconds shamed us for using.
But that came from SciByte, right?
You got it.
I remember.
I used that on SciByte for ages, and now I do think the Red Book was. Now we have a better. I don't think they actually have a Red Book. We actually have.
We actually had a physical Red Book,
and now we have a digital Red Book. So, but that was like sort of our homage to them, because I felt like they were sort of like genre defining a bit.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, they're definitely the trendsetters for sure.
They covered it. They covered it, and they de-douched us. And
you know what? I actually feel a little bit lighter today.
Really? Because I've had a hell of a day, dude.
So was this on the latest Sunday episode?
Yeah.
Okay, the Sunday.
So Thursday episode from last week.
We got thrashed.
We got douched. by one of our own fucking audience members. Thank you very much, whoever that was. And then I don't know. I think the Unfiltered Army must have gone after John, because
they're like, look.
He went back. We haven't described the origins of this show for, I think, literally, I could say confidently, hundreds of episodes.
Yeah, I think the last time we've maybe
pre-100?
Pre-100,
yeah.
maybe.
And so somehow he got that exact moment. So I think somebody else in the audience came to our defense and said, dude, they actually credited you. Like, actually, I think we credited them in like episode 2 or 3. And the reason why I say that is because the clip they played, the audio quality sucks compared to what we have now. And that was actually what hurt me the most, is like, oh, couldn't you have played a more recent version?
Well, what they did is they knew our I'm just joking here, but they knew that our audio quality was so good that they scrubbed it through some crap, and so they make it sound worse.
The only things that really stung was they claimed that this clip here, let's see.
Reclaiming your time?
Was it?
Why are you laughing?
No, wasn't that what it was?
Reclaiming my time.
Or it was...
My millennials, stay woke.
I forget which.
I think it was the Stay Woke possibility.
You know, my best defense is... so they were thinking I was stealing their clips.
Whoa.
Why would I steal their clips? Why would I pay... Okay, let me rephrase this. Why the hell would I pay producer Matt if I'm just taking their clips?
Oh, and on top of that,
in fact, they're audio only.
Yeah. and on top of that, how many times have you said on the show, "Oh God, that'd be a great clip. Hey, can somebody?"
Yeah.
So
that's how it works. That's how we got that.
Yes.
Yeah. Producer Matt's listening live, and he usually clip it for us, or an audience member clips it for us. But I didn't really want to like go on the defensive, because, like, you know, I respect what their show, and I really like the No Agenda program. I listen usually, you know, at least to every other episode.
Yeah, I haven't had much time to listen lately, but I still download it because, I want them to get the credit for the download. I think it's, you know, still like it's my homage to pay respect to them, because I found, I'll say it again, I know we've hashed this before, but I found you through the show.
Yeah.
You donated to the show.
And they say the city.
Yeah, Chris Fisher, Jupiter Broad, Marysville, Washington. And I was just like, wait, what? And so I, put on the Google juices, and I was like, holy crap, he's like just down the road from me. I need to say hi to this guy.
The way they framed it is that we cloned their show after we found each other, but you and I specifically spent weeks like hanging out, driving around, going to Savannah Meets, talking about like, what do we want to do? Like, we spent more than a month.
Remember, we went to Stanwood. We had Italian food. I remember that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But like at the same time, like I want to give. I was gonna come on the show and I was gonna be like, you guys didn't do your own research. Both of us have been donors in the past. I was gonna shame them a little bit because
we're gonna douche you. Yeah.
Well, no, there was some obvious flaws in their argument, but then like they actually did a make good later on. Now
someone did the research.
So they fucked us in the first donation segment at the top because one of their top donors like really douchebagged us. Like some son of a bitch donated like $1,000 and called us out. Like, I'm looking at our Patreon
so
going...
honestly, Adam and John should be thanking us
right.
for their large...
Yeah. And then they didn't correct the error until at the end of the second donation segment in the next week's episode, in the next Sunday's episode. But that's fine. That's fine. And then John did correctly analyze like our situation. He's like, they're not making enough money. Patreon isn't the best platform for this. Like they did correct. Like so, John's like industry experience.
Oh
like,
yeah, well he's got loads of that.
Yeah,
yes,
he correctly called out the fact that this show does not earn enough money to cover its overhead, but he missed the fact that there is an entire network. Like at the same time, like he specifically like de-douched me and called out all of our Linux shows and said there was a whole network that competes with Leo. But he missed but then when he did the analysis of the show, he's like, that show doesn't make enough money. There's no way they can afford to do that show with the amount of money they're making. He missed out. Like at the same time, he's crediting me for the whole network. He missed the fact that like, well, I have other shows that earn revenue that cover the cost of this show.
Yeah.
So
that's usually how a network works.
They gave us shit for having Patreon and not making enough money, but so that's kind of funny that they attacked us for that. Like those guys obviously aren't making enough money. I'm like, come on, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But then when they have like one donor who's giving them $1,000, and then they have like 15 more donors after that. They're making a totally different scale of money.
Yeah. Well, I did stumble across their subreddit.
Oh,
and
oh man, how was that? Were they talking about us in there?
They had in the past,
really?
Not currently.
No shit. They talked about Unfiltered in the subreddit, huh?
Yeah. Actually, I'll pull it up real quick. No agenda, Unfiltered.
Was it Unfiltered 41? Because that guy, he's got nothing better.
So this was back. God, this feels such a dated thing. This is back in 2015.
Oh, okay, 3
years ago.
Yeah. We were a totally different show. Yeah. Didn't we have multiple hosts? We had like 3 or 4
3
hosts?
years ago? I don't know. I don't even know. Wait, this was no. They just linked to the show.
To John's credit, too, he said, they started back in 2012.
Yeah, we did. What's the story with the Unfiltered podcast? I listened to one yesterday, quote, the ISIS swindle. So that will give us a episode number, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And it seemed like a direct ripoff of the No Agenda show, from the use of bells during clips down to using several of their jingles. What's the deal with these jabronis? There wasn't a lot of comments, by the way. It was just 3 comments. But
that was 134.
Wow. Okay.
So that was February 8th, 2015. Damn, look at that nice artwork I did for that. Look with the
water kind of just kind of floating there. Yes, I like that. No, but what they do is they will post the episodes online, like for example, official discussion No Agenda show for Sunday, and it's called Sunburps, episode 1021. And in the comments, they actually break down the donation tally. So you're gonna love that.
No.
Yeah. All right. So I'm not letting you look at the screen. Oh man, I knocked something over.
No, it's okay. Right. What was it?
All right. So they have 2 segments, right? I don't know.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Well, this is awesome.
All right.
I had no idea.
So, Kate, it's time to play Ask the Chat Room. Do we have that clip?
So some mother effer is keeping track?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No way.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are you ready?
So no cheating, chat audience and Chris. Here we go. So the No Agenda show has 2 donation segments. In the first segment, Chris, how much total money was donated to the show?
Is this recent?
Yes, this is Sunday's show.
Well,
show.
Okay, so the first segment is the biggest donors of the show. They have 2 donation segments.
That is correct.
We have 1, they have 2.
Yes.
And that's the biggest donors at the beginning of the show.
Top of the show.
Top of the show is the biggest donors.
Yeah, about 30 minutes.
Executive producers, things like that.
All right, I will give you a clue. They had 4 executive producers.
I was listening because I was told they talked about us. So I actually did hear this segment. I actually listened to this segment.
Okay. Right.
And I distinctly remember that both John and Adam vehemently complained that it was not enough money, that it was a low showing, and that it was, of course, what would you expect with Easter Sunday is what they said. So I'm going to say, because it was such a low showing, I'm going to say $780.
All right, so Chris says $780.
You want me to roll the dice?
Feel free to roll the dice. Now, I respect you, Chris. You're like The Price is Right. You're bidding low.
I mean, you look at us, $780 for half a week's worth of Unfiltered would really, really move the dial.
2,380.
I'm sorry, what?
$2,380 for their first segment. That's the first
for one segment.
For first segment.
For one segment. For one segment of the show, and they
yes.
have 2 segments in the show.
Yes, one person.
And this is they have 2 shows a week.
So first donation is $580, $500, $333.
Yeah.
$333.
Yeah.
$234, $200, and $200.
Yeah, $580 was low. Usually they're over $500 for the first. Okay, do you have more?
Oh yes.
All right.
The second segment.
No, okay. Let me see if I can guess this.
So segment 2. This is the
lower
ones.
amount.
Yeah,
this is the lower amount. You got your monthlies in here.
Yes.
They had a special deal just for Easter Sunday.
Yes.
I'm going to say. Well, we had one patron this week, so I'm going to say $2. $2. That's what we earned this month. Are you ready?
Yeah.
That's what we earned
Yeah,
between this
yeah.
episode and last episode. We earned $2.
Yeah.
So, are you ready? Do you want me to? Okay.
Pull it. Segment number 2 is $1,122 for a grand total of $3,502.90 plus $288 for special donations for the month of March. So they've added it up for the month of March. For last month, $43,560 for the month of March. Show 1020. $5,400. Show 1019, $2,600. Show 1018, $3,200, and show 1017, $4,200. Yes, there you go. $43,000 for 1 month,
and we've made $3,600.
And we're on Patreon. So
you know, yeah. I mean, yeah. There you go. There you have it. Wow, that's the difference, right? And you know, I don't know this for sure, but I am pretty sure we work a lot harder at this show because we're doing video, and it just takes so much.
Video
more work.
is hard.
Yeah, it takes a lot more.
Video
work.
is hard.
Well, all right. So there you have it. So Patreon.com/unfiltered if you like that. Yeah, that's just it. Like, we couldn't do the show if it wasn't part of the larger network, but it is still, you can tell by those numbers, it's what the cost that goes in, the amount of work, the amount of thinking that goes into it just doesn't equal to what we make, but we'd love to get closer if you want to help us close that gap. Well, that really brought me down, though.
It brought me down, and I had a rough week in general, and I'll talk a little. I'll talk what I can talk about on. I decided I'm going to say something.
Yeah, okay.
It's been a rough week.
Me too.
It's been a rough week.
It has. It has been a weird one. Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? I don't know what to say. I can't believe it. So you got to divide that in 2.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, they do 2 shows per week, and I mean, I don't know the amount of work that. No, I'm being straight here.
Could you imagine if you and I were doing $20K a month on this show, and we were both taking home $10,000 a month?
I would be able to quit my job nicely.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I wouldn't be living off of family's property in my RV. That's
Axiom thinks it's a marketing thing, that we need more marketing.
I knew Adam was making a ton of money when he was paying a shit ton of money a month just to park his Airstream, because that takes hundreds of dollars a month just to park it somewhere.
Now to be perfectly fair and balanced, Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak have had illustrious careers.
That's true. They got names,
right? And they've been able to build their reputation for what they stand for and what they do.
Yeah, and it's a good product.
Yeah, it's a well-deserved thing. They've worked hard for it. And I want to be abundantly clear. We're not implying that they don't.
Yeah, and you can't say what we're doing has been a flop either, because it gets tons and tons and tons of downloads, and we have an active Patreon. It's a different scale.
Yeah.
They're
up there. We're over here.
Well, it explains why this is one of 8 shows that I do in a week, and not the only show that I do.
Yeah.
And if it was the only show, perhaps it'd be a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But you could say that for any of my shows.
Right.
It's just a different strategy. And over time, it may consolidate a bit. And, it actually, as it has. If you've been listening to the shows for the last 6 months, the shows that are remaining have gotten higher and higher in quality.
Yeah.
Including this one. All right, Mr. Chase. Well, with that, what do you say we kick off the show, and we'll leave it to our patrons to support this here program? Because right now I feel like we need it more than ever. All right, and we begin. Please do bang suggest as we go along. We would love to have it, because we're bad at titling these things these days. After After nearly 300 episodes, it gets hard to name these sons of bitches, don't you think?
Well, that's why we have an awesome community and chat room that's able to pull the weight and make it happen.
We will. Bang suggests we shall see. We shall see. All right. It is Unfiltered 275 in a 3 in a 2. This is Unfiltered, episode 275 for April 4th, 2018.
Tonight, a defiant Kremlin lashing out and placing new blame, insisting again that it had nothing to do with a brazen assassination attempt of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia last month in Salisbury, England.
No other country has a combination of the capability, the intent and the motive to carry out such an act.
Sources say the sophisticated nature of the attack that included heavy doses of the nerve agent placed on Sergei Skripal's front doorknob points directly to orders from the Kremlin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to an episode of Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news that you shouldn't be watching. I'm Chase over there running the board and just hanging out, having a good time. Mr. Chris, how you doing, man?
Good. Dinging my own bell that I've had for years, Chase. You know what? I'm really happy to be here because we have so much to get into this week.
Yes, we do. I got to say that the news has been very interesting over the past week.
Buddy.
Both in show-related news, right? Because, there's been some things happening with the show and other things. And my place of employment.
Yeah. The show has been...
It's been nuts.
The show has been in the sphere of discussion. It's been talked about. And the place that you work for... Well, at least who owns them.
My parent. Well, actually, both because the place that I work for and the parent company.
Yeah.
And I will address what I can address. I'll put it that way.
All right. And then, on top of all of that, you've got some more stuff with the Russia poisoning gate. You've got more with the border wall, the military going down there. Of course, there's some new cyber threats that we should all be freaking out about right now. Didn't you know? Well, we'll tell you about that. We got a high note to kind of cap it all off. And then, if you can stick around for your veggies, we've got an overtime that is packed full of useful information.
Nice.
A lot to get into, Mr. Chase.
Yes, sir.
It's good to be here before I head off on my not like a full spring break trip, but it's like a half spring break trip. I'm about to head out after the show. I'm about to head off on like a half. I'm going to go down to Oregon, get down somewhere near the coast, enjoy the beach for a little bit. And just chill.
I should plant a seed, by the way. I keep forgetting to mention this to you. In 2 weeks, so not next week, but the 18th, I will be in San Francisco.
And then shortly after that is Linux Fest Northwest. I know, where you and I will be at. So if anybody could potentially make it out, check out Linux Fest Northwest online. Mr. Chase and I will be there at the end of this month.
That's right. And
I'm looking forward to that,
There'll be video. We'll be on camera. It'll be amazing.
Ooh.
Yeah, well...
you better keep the beard until least...
Oh, the beard's not going anywhere.
Okay,
and
good.
right now, mine's built in enough.
Yeah,
it's
I say you leave it.
It's
what do you think? I'm going with the neck beard. Are you going with neck beard too?
I'm just going with the line.
So how do you decide where to shave on the neck?
So I picked up this tip on YouTube, and it's a very sound tip. You look for your Adam's apple, okay? 2 fingers above the Adam's apple. That's your point, and then and then basically you just go from there.
I need to do that. See, I've been grown in the neck because I hate shaving the neck.
Yeah, if you go to about 2 fingers above the Adam's apple, that's a sweet spot in my opinion.
Thanks for the visual there.
Yeah, so let me show you some other manscaping ideas.
All right, so we got something special in the cyber segment this week. You know how we like to, ever since Edward Snowden was a thing, we like to have a cyber segment.
Let me clean off my desk.
And this week, PBS got some exclusive access to how the Department of Defense is protecting the entire United States military apparatus.
Ooh, I feel safe.
They just had a couple of rules they had to follow. They couldn't name anybody. They couldn't describe how they're doing anything. But they could tell us how they're protecting us from lots of spam. Well, not us. No, not us. But the military. From lots of spam.
The internet was largely created by the U.S. Defense Department in the late 60s, primarily for its research and development operations. Now, like every other wired institution, it depends on it for everything it does. As a result, the Defense Department's information network is now targeted by nearly 40 million malicious emails every day.
Spam does not equate to cyber attack. And
correct.
The issue that we often have is like when we hear about the amount of cyber attacks every year or data breaches every year, a lot of times they're just quoting semantic antivirus triggers with an aggregate across all of their enterprise customers. And that's not a legitimate number. So this whole premise here with the Matrix, if you're listening, they have Matrix code scrolling across the screen right now, talking about all of the millions of dangerous emails.
Where's the keyboard sounds coming in? Did I miss those?
No, but we will have some keyboard close-ups.
All right, good.
Is now targeted by nearly 40 million malicious emails every day. Colonel Paul Kraft's cyber protection teams defend the network from this top-secret operations center called the JSOC.
We do not want the enemy to get a foothold into the Department of Defense's networks, to gain or maintain any terrain just like they would in land.
The NewsHour was granted exclusive access.
So here's what I think is wrong, is the government is taking sort of a traditional warfare approach to this, and they can't help but think about it in terms of territory and land and regional locations. And that's just not how it works on a TCP/IP network. See, they're not coming at it as technologists. They're coming at it as resource conservatists. And they're talking to somebody, this PBS News anchor, who's completely out of touch. And I think this really shows why we're never going to quite crack this, at least the current generation. To me, as soon as you have a department of people, you're doing it wrong. As soon as you have a large group of people, you're doing it wrong.
Just like they would in land.
The NewsHour was granted exclusive access under conditions we not identify team members or the cyber defense technologies they use.
You know, because then you might be able to ascertain how effective they actually are.
You will not be able to see us use VLC or Windows Media Player as we play clips on our big screens.
So they're bringing in cyber experts to fill out their cyber team from all over, including folks who watch TV ads.
It created an opening into the Defense Department's network. These cyber teams are drawn from all the services and ranks. Some were trained by the military, others were recruited for their cyber skills.
So, if you want to double check their cyber skills, what question do you ask?
Do you ASL? That's one.
It's not like fighting a war in another domain where you deploy troops, you fight, you go home. Conflict in the cyber domain is constant.
Yeah.
So you got constant port scans.
Yeah. Those troll comment boards that you have to go in there. You got to look at Telegram. I mean, there's so many things to do.
So if you've ever watched U.S. television, you've seen the type of shows where they run U.S. recruiting ads, and you've seen the type of shows where they don't.
Yeah.
And this was one of those recruiting ads that had a secret URL.
I can shut down your power grids. I can paralyze your infrastructure.
A line of code buried in this Army recruiting ad generated nearly 800,000 hacking attempts on a fake military website. The 1% who cracked the site were invited to join the military's cyber warfare team.
Well, they must be elite then. If they looked at some sort of URL during an NFL football game.
You know, this is they're just taking from what Google has done and Facebook has done. Have you seen like these billboards where they have the lines of code and, it just doesn't make sense to us? We're like, what's that about? And then one of your program buddies goes, oh, yeah, they're just recruiting.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's why that's how they're positioning this. Even if this was fairly unsuccessful. So you play this to an audience of 11 million people.
Wait, I know this. This is a Unix system, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they have an Nmap in there too showing you the open ports. Nmap of a host, and they have an address of a URL in there. They even flashed the URL line to make sure you catch it. And they're trying to suppose that only the elite hackers watching TV knew what this was. Don't kid yourself.
1% who cracked the site were invited to join the military's cyber warfare team. How many of you would consider yourselves gamers?
Oh, God. He didn't, did he?
It's PBS, dude.
Come on, man.
I know. Of course. I mean, if they're gamers, they probably use Discord.
And they're probably hackers.
Cyber warfare team. How many of you would consider yourselves gamers? Training and retaining this new generation of cyber warriors is an ongoing challenge.
I could walk out today and get a very easily six-figure salary. It's not about the money. It's about the pride in your job and what you do for the American people.
You know, catching those millions and millions and millions of spam messages. The pride in that. So then they had to figure out, well, PBS had to figure out what attacks are real. Like, if the Pentagon's got this entire division, what can we verify as an actual verifiable cyber attack? And you know what they came across? Stuxnet.
Operation. Or what, if any, involvement the U.S. had with the widely reported but officially denied cyber attack on an Iranian nuclear facility.
So this is years ago, covered it on the TechSNAP program as it developed. Stuxnet was created by the U.S. and by Israel working together. And the whole idea was create this bit of an imbalance in the Iranian centrifuges so that way they would spin a little off-kilter and eventually blow up while they're trying to refine materials. That's what Stuxnet was. And it was amazing how they got Stuxnet out there, including bypassing air gaps, using all kinds of crazy technologies, USB thumb drives, some of the most basic, obvious ways to get onto networks. The whole spectrum was Stuxnet. Stuxnet truly represented the United States' first massive military weapon that was all computer code. That's Stuxnet.
But officially denied cyber attack on an Iranian nuclear facility using a software virus called Stuxnet, which disabled critical equipment.
What was created with Stuxnet was not just an operation to sabotage Iranian nuclear research. It was a new kind of weapon.
Peter Singer with the New America Foundation and other defense analysts believe the Iranian attack to be a major turning point in cyber warfare.
Now, to make it clear, because it's a little unclear, the Iranian attack isn't Iran attacking us. No. It's us attacking Iran, okay? So the Iranian attack is us going after Iran's nukes, not them attacking us.
Believe the Iranian attack to be a major turning point in cyber warfare.
They created a weapon, something that caused physical damage, but it was unlike every other in history in that it was computer software, as much as zeros and ones.
So that's what PBS found when they looked at things that have gotten a lot of traction.
Gotcha.
So Panetta comes around, your good buddy.
My friend, yeah.
Leon, who was quite the yes man during Obama. And he says, look, we got to go on the offensive. Just take Ukraine as an example.
We recently visited Ukraine, where there was a number of cyber attacks that actually impacted their critical infrastructure.
Do you recognize that voice?
Is that Lisa Ling?
Nope.
Oh.
No, you're in there.
Wait, Katie? Katie Couric?
Nope.
Cyber attacks on the power grid that led to hundreds of thousands of people losing their power.
I would show you her face, but in fact, watch. I'll scrub the clip. They won't show you her face for... Wait for it. We've seen Leon. We've seen Putin. There it is.
She's that... She was from RT, wasn't she?
You got it.
Yes.
Yep. That's Liz. She's the gal that got tricked by a think tank to denounce RT, and that she was guaranteed a new job. She went on CNN and said, Putin, and said Putin over and over again, talked about how awful RT was, and then she has not worked in the news business until Newsly, which is a chicken shit, no-name online news division, hired her to do this. And this is the one and only camera shot that she has in this entire interview.
Wow.
Yeah. So she interviews Leon Panetta, who says that, yeah, we've got to go on the offensive against Russia because of what's happened in Ukraine. And I guess when he says because of what's happened in Ukraine, he must be referring to us helping overthrow the government.
Fuck the EU.
you.
I would imagine. I'm not sure what he means by that.
You're probably right.
Yeah. So anyways.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been denied internet access since Monday and isn't being allowed visitors at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he's been staying for almost 6 years.
Well, how's he going to tweet?
Now, sources close to the whistleblower group have told RT why the Ecuadorian officials took those decisions, as Anastasia Churkina reports.
Do you have any guesses?
Well, he was trying to get his fantasy baseball team put together.
According to sources close to WikiLeaks, we have learned that the Ecuadorian government had placed electronic jammers inside the Ecuadorian embassy right behind me, where Julian Assange has been holed up for over 5.5 years now. And the idea of this was to block him from being able to tweet, as well as communicate with the outside world, hold telephone conversations, or have access to the internet, generally speaking. We also understand that he's been banned from having visitors inside the embassy, and apparently all of this comes following a publication in the Ecuadorian press about Julian Assange's tweets concerning the Catalan issue, specifically the detention of Catalan independence leader Carles Puigdemont in Germany earlier this week.
Yeah, see, the problem with Julian is we always hear about him interfering with our government operations, but he be tweeting about world events all the time, and he stepped on some toes. So it's one of those get out, no more internet for you, get out kind of moves.
I still I know why he's holed up there, but I kind of forget why the Ecuadorian embassy
they were the ones that gave him a place. Yeah, it really came down to some rape accusations, which I think have been rescinded. But
no. Like if he stepped out on the street right now, he would just be arrested immediately.
That's weird. What do you think will happen first? Julian Assange leaves the embassy, or the Unfiltered show ends?
Oh, God.
Probably Assange?
I would say probably Assange.
Really depends on that Patreon, though. Patreon.com/unfiltered. All right. This is a weird one because I had to do a show while this whole damn thing was happening, and it just put a funk over the whole live event. I know, poor me, right?
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good afternoon. We are following a tense situation unfolding right now in San Bruno, California, just south of San Francisco. The picture zooming in from the air on the headquarters of YouTube. Police say there were reports of an active shooter there. It has drawn a massive police response from what we can see from these aerial photos, as well as a vigorous EMS response.
What a hell of a thing, huh?
Yeah.
So a YouTube shooting, and we didn't know what was going on until word started coming out that the family of the alleged shooter had warned police.
Breaking details about the shooting at YouTube's headquarters. Here's what we know this morning. Police have identified the suspect as Nasim Aghdam, a woman who lived in California and frequently used YouTube.
Her family says she was angry at the company. She killed herself after opening fire on 3 employees, one of them now in critical condition. ABC senior national correspondent Matt Gutman is at YouTube headquarters with the latest. Good morning, Matt.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things to take in here. So she goes to the YouTube headquarters. It's a female, and she was a YouTube content creator herself.
Yes, she was.
Hey, good morning, George. You can imagine those terrified employees here at YouTube just pouring down that staircase behind me, seeking shelter in the restaurants just across the street. Now, you mentioned this is a fast-moving investigation, but overnight we learned that 39-year-old drove up here from Southern California, Nasim Aghdam, bearing a vendetta against YouTube and that 9mm gun. Now, incredibly, her parents had listed her as missing, and the night before the shooting, officers in nearby Mountain View, California, found her sleeping in her car. They alerted her family. Now, their family says...
So the cops find her 2 a.m. in Mountain View.
Right.
Google, by the way, Google's headquarters is Mountain View.
Yeah, right around the corner.
Find her at 2 a.m. They call her family, and her family says, yeah, she's missing. We're concerned about her. And they say, quote, we'll keep an eye on her.
Uh-oh.
That they tried to alert authorities about her, but by then it was too late. Law enforcement officials say this is the woman, 38-year-old Nasim Aghdam, who stormed into an employee patio at YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California, shooting 3 employees before turning the gun on herself.
It was one after another, boom, 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 boom.
Her family says the prolific YouTube user...
My name is Nasim Sabs.
...hated the company. claiming it was censoring her content and not paying her for the videos she posted on the platform.
I'm being discriminated and filtered on YouTube.
She had a YouTube channel which posted ab workout videos, and many of them in Farsi. Her brother says her family reported her missing over the weekend and claims they told police about her deep-seated resentment towards YouTube.
You can actually find images of her like holding protest signs.
Yeah.
With YouTube censorship.
Problem with YouTube, so we called that cop.
This is her brother.
Again, and told him that there's a reason she went all the way from San Diego to that.
Active shooter at 901 Cherry. The first call for help came in at 12:46 local time.
This is crazy. We're on lockdown.
2 minutes later, first responders arrived. This officer bursting out of his vehicle with that long gun, a YouTube employee right there on the staircase using his key to let the officer into the complex.
It was very chaotic, as you can imagine.
Police moving forward, finding hundreds of YouTube employees, their hands raised, searching each of them. The wounded scrambling out of the YouTube complex, some of them still bleeding.
Inside the Carl's Jr. in San Bruno, medical aid.
Good Samaritans stanching the wounds with napkins from nearby restaurants.
We really didn't. We just kind of acted out of instinct and tried to do what we can to help, just kind of stop the bleeding. And
wow, huh?
Oy.
Talk about on location responses there. So you got the brother and the father who says that. So you got the brother and the father, both of them.
The father of Nasim Aghdam told CBS News his daughter was very upset with YouTube, and he warned police about her. Her numerous videos touch on a wide range of subjects and include parodies. Police believe the people she shot were chosen at random.
Yeah, man. I mean, when I see this kind of story, I mean, obviously this is an individual who took it too far, but there's so many things that come to my mind about this story. First of all, she may simply be a victim of complete machine automation. There may not have been an individual at YouTube who did any one thing that upset her. It may have all been completely automated.
And you know what? How many times has our show been
we completely got pulled down a week ago?
Yeah, well, that been hijacked by an automated system, content ID and matching and all that stuff. So, and obviously, recently, YouTube made some changes to the smaller content creators out there and pulling them out of the partner program. I read into her history a little bit and also found out that a lot of her videos were demonetized, and she, tried to appeal them and failed. They marked her videos, sensitive content.
Yeah.
And also basically kind of blocked them in a way where you would have to click the allowed to see the video, kind of like an adult restriction almost. So, I mean, I'm not excusing this at all. I'm just saying, though, she reached her breaking point, and then she made the trip.
Yeah, I don't want to be the guy that says YouTube needs to wake the F up,
No.
because it's not that. It's she was crazy, and the parents knew she was crazy. And I hate that so many times the shooter was known ahead of time but just couldn't be stopped.
It's very rare, though, in this kind of instance. I mean, it's not usually women that do these kind of things.
Yeah, I know that. And you know what? NBC,
It's very rare.
NBC went out of their way to make that point.
Today's incident at YouTube, just the latest in a long string of workplace shootings across the country. 2015, 14 dead in a terror attack at a San Bernardino public health office. Over the years, dozens more killed at a naval facility, a beer distributor, post offices, and many more. From 1982 through 2018, 96 workplace mass shootings. 94 of them carried out by male shooters. Just a single shooter was female. The San Bernardino attack carried out by a man and a woman.
It's very rare that we see a female shooter in a violence in a workplace scenario. We've seen them at companies across the country. But again, it's usually the male that's acting out with a weapon or a firearm like this.
A study released by the Secret Service just last week found nearly half of mass shooting suspects were motivated by a personal grievance, often retaliating for a perceived wrong.
That's interesting right there in itself. I guess what it really is you just can't plan. You can't plan for the crazy factor. And when you look at her content, I have a link to an archive version of her website in the show notes too at unfiltered.show/275. There's just no accounting for crazy, Chase. She is legit upset
Yeah.
She saw tyranny. She saw control. She saw restriction of speech. She saw restriction of thought. And in her sick mind, that made it okay to take a violent action. And I've seen the Snapchat screenshots that some of you may be thinking about. Somebody on Twitter who was a former YouTube employee or a friend of a YouTube employee or a current YouTube employee, I don't know, was in a Snapchat group of people who were at YouTube during the shooting. And they talk about how she's fully decked out in body armor and she's wearing like these cool like sunglasses. And she's walking around skinny and like buff as hell. She just looks super buff and thin, and she's just holding a boom, boom. She's just walking around, boom, shooting people. Totally calm, not running, walking like.
Bugging wise, it's like always between this half hour.
Really?
Yeah.
So
this is the second time I've been here that it's happened between 5:30 and 6.
Well, a half hour is too much of a range to work with.
No, I know, but it does happen around this time is what I'm saying. So I don't know how long the stream is up before I show up, but maybe there's some sort of memory leak. I bet you there's a memory leak. There's got to be a memory leak.
Well, there's definitely memory leaks in Gnome. Yeah, absolutely. That's like a known thing.
Is there a way you can move from Gnome to something else? Or I mean,
yes.
It's a stupid question. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So that right there, I think, should give you an insight into how many plates I have spinning right now that I haven't.
No, I understand.
I haven't addressed that.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me angry a little bit.
I know.
Because
I feel the rage.
I'm so busy just keeping the lights on these days that
Yeah.
I can't even address that stuff.
No, I hear
and it's just, and you know, I worked with people who set that up for me, and now are gone. And they didn't finish the job, and they didn't ever take care of it properly, and so now it's now all of a sudden it's my responsibility to fix it. And not that it wasn't all along; it's just that I thought that person was going to handle it. They told me they would handle it. They didn't handle it, and now they're gone. And it's like it's not working, you know. And it was working better. It's whatever. All right. So how can we fix this? Well, I'll see. How can I do this? Because fuck, see, it went from like I don't have to edit this show. Now I have to edit this show.
Yeah, they have to splice
and I have to now. That means I have to render it and I have to encode it. And like it went from I could just post the MP4 to now it went from this is an 8 p.m. job to 11:30 midnight job. Damn. Maybe I should. I don't know. I don't. God damn, I wish that shit wouldn't crash. You know, it hasn't crashed on any other show since last week. Didn't it crash last week on us?
No, because I think you mentioned to me that like you had a reboot or something.
Oh, yeah, it crashed beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah. So it has been Wednesdays.
Yes, it's been consistent.
Man.
I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to jinx anything.
You
know what I mean?
Right? Yeah, totally. Knock on wood.
You know?
Yes. Man, this is one of those things where I wish I could just take like a 35-minute, 45, 50-minute break and come back, but the show has to go on. But I'm just so angry that I've been left with some technical debt because man, it just gives me a headache. Actually, man, my head hurts just even thinking about it. This just went from like a, damn it, man. Like tonight I got to pack up too. Like, oh man, I'm going to be up all night now. Yeah. Well, at least I'm just copying all my clips from the No Agenda show, so it's.
I know, man. Don't kick yourself on that. Damn it! I don't look like you enough. I guess I'm just kidding.
Oh, God. All right. Well, so what would be a clean way to pick that up? Do you think? So that way I don't have to do a ton of editing. I guess that would be sort of like the middle.
So it crashed during the clip, right?
No, it crashed while I was talking, which is the worst. Like if it's during a clip, you just restart the clip. But when it's us talking, it's like, where do you go back?
I would just start the next clip. Just kind of make a cut point and just start the next clip.
Yeah, and just, okay. Yeah, I guess what we have to do, right?
Yeah.
And we just don't have that bit of conversation?
Yeah, I mean, in the big scope of things, it's not huge.
You're right. All right. Okay. All right, moving on.
Need some more alcohol.
Somebody go do a booze run for us so we can have some booze.
Someone do a keg run.
Let's go. We need some beers in the studio. All right.
We move forward, Axiom, never backward.
Never backwards. Okay. And 3 and a 3 and a 2. That is a really interesting situation, and I don't think that YouTube has really fully thought through all of the impact they have on the people that are on their platform. I'm not trying to justify that lady's actions. She's pure crazy. But the fact that the cops knew that she was there, they'd seen her ahead of time at 2 a.m.
Now, to be completely fair on this, and I don't want to pin all this on our law enforcement community. Legally, there's not much they can do.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, she was sleeping in her car. Okay, maybe she was breaking a parking law, that sort of thing. But they can't just keep her.
Yeah.
She's an adult.
I know.
She hasn't broken any laws.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it. So you can't put this on the police. I don't know. There's a lot of people that go, hey, they knew. Well, they can't put it all on them.
I just can't.
All right. Well, the FBI has launched an investigation of itself. This should surely produce something interesting.
The Justice Department Inspector General is opening an investigation into Republican charges that the FBI and DOJ were biased in their work on the Trump-Russia probe. This move stops short of fulfilling calls from many in the GOP for a special counsel to look into the matter. Tonight, correspondent Peter Doocy tells us why some people see an inherent conflict.
Now, don't let the Brett Baer trigger you. You know what it does for me.
I like how you say the Brett Baer.
Dude, when you're the Brett Baer, it is you deserve the. The. Unfiltered.show/275. I have a link in there of text messages between the individuals they're discussing. And it's one of those where the individual who decided to investigate this is a Democrat. He saw these text messages and he's like, "Oh shit. Well, I got no other option than to look into this because these Republicans are making a big stink out of this, and it's right there in plain text."
Tonight, correspondent Peter Doocy tells us why some people see an inherent conflict. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Brett. These questions about whether or not the FBI's surveillance capabilities were abused for political purposes ahead of the 2016 election are no longer just coming from Republican members of Congress.
And the Unfiltered Show. I mean, we've been talking about the use of the FISA court for years on the show.
Way before this.
Way before the election. Way before the election, right?
Probably, episode 182?
No, way before that.
100?
I'd say even in the
70s.
maybe actually.
I don't know. Ahead of the 2016 election are no longer just coming from Republican members of Congress because the official with the resources to root out criminal violations at the FBI has opened a case. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is now under investigation itself by the Justice Department Inspector General, trying to see if anyone in the ranks broke the rules when convincing federal judges to sign off on the surveillance of an American citizen. Inspector General Michael Horowitz says, quote, "As part of this examination, the OIG also will review information that was known to the DOJ and the FBI at the time the applications were filed from or about an alleged FBI confidential source." Republicans alleged in the Nunes memo that information from former British spy Christopher Steele, compiled in an unverified dossier, was key to that FISA warrant. This announcement comes as the FBI Director Christopher Wray doubles the number of staffers helping sort through documents that Republican lawmakers subpoenaed because they were so delayed, from 27 staffers to 54. Wray writes that, quote, "The actual number of documents responsive to this request is likely in the thousands. Regardless, I agree that the current pace of production is too slow." By dramatically expanding the number of staffers assigned to sift through documents Republicans want, Wray is defying Democrats like the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, Gerald Nadler, who recently said, quote, "It seems that this subpoena is intended to speed up that production to pivot the discussion back to Hillary Clinton and divert attention from the chaos surrounding the Trump administration and allegations involving the Trump campaign." The order to beef up the Bureau's staff
assigned to help Congress came straight from the top, according to a DOJ insider who tells Fox, quote, senior staff on both sides of the street have met on this, and the FBI is getting called to the carpet. The Attorney General is angry with how slow the process has moved when it comes to requests from Congress to the FBI. But some Republicans still think Sessions is acting like an Obama appointee.
And I'm sorry, but Attorney General Sessions, I don't see much of a difference between him and Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder. I mean, what's the difference? When you issue a subpoena from Congress, it's just a suggestion, it's just a request. There's no urgency that you have to hit it by the deadline.
These extra FBI staffers now working to speed up their response to Republican requests for documents are not just planning to produce information about FISA abuse. They are also tasked with finding emails and texts and memos about the Clinton server investigation as Republicans continue to probe why nobody ever got in trouble.
Oh, man, it's just going to be endless. I mean, part of me is happy that at least there's going to be some accountability, but another part of me is like, is this just never going to end?
But, you know, this is so... Yes, thank you for, everybody stepping up to the plate here. When you see something, you're supposed to say something. And
if you see something, say something.
Sorry. Yes. But on top of that, though, I think we need to see it all the way around, though. When there are situations where it is just plainly wrong based on a legal measure. If non-partisan,
so you're saying you're in favor of this?
No, what I'm saying though is, if someone's stepping up to the plate and saying something because they just saw something,
they saw
or
the text messages,
right? It shouldn't matter about party. It shouldn't.
I agree.
It should matter.
I agree
about legality.
I agree. I'm just so sick of it. I'm just so sick of it. I just want it to end. I want them to get back to running the government.
That's never going to happen.
You're probably right.
Yes.
Wise words.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about this Russia poisoning. NBC has recreated the moments after the attack.
Like, did they use Google Maps or something? Or?
Nope, just speculation.
Oh.
I'm Richard Engel. Tonight, new clues that could solve what's been a weeks-long mystery. Just how were former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter poisoned with a nerve agent that left them critically ill?
Actually, and this is one of the reasons I decided to make this our intro clip, as of today, it's been 1 month.
Wow, already?
A lot has happened, though. So
yes, it has.
We've had diplomats slash spies kicked out of lots of countries. We've had new sanctions proposed. We've had calls for emergency UN councils in 30 days. Like, it's amazing to see how governments around the world can really act when they need to, or want to.
Yeah.
We've reconstructed their last known movements on March 4th in Salisbury, England. At 1:30, they set out from home for drinks at this pub, followed by lunch around the corner. At 3:35, they left the restaurant and soon collapsed on a nearby park bench.
So they've been to a lot of places.
Okay. Chemical weapons expert Hamish de Breton Gordon walked us through the crime scene.
So someone who's not involved with the investigation at all, but
By the way, what do you think they're shooting this on?
Not an iPhone.
I don't know if you noticed, but it's definitely something gimbalized.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a GoPro.
Yeah. I mean, if they are, they're doing some post-processing to unbezel that image.
Yes. Yes.
Or bevel or whatever they call
right,
it. But
yeah.
So I find this to be an interesting tactic, is they bring in somebody who is within a position to speak on the subject matter. They're maybe familiar with the chemicals involved or the spycraft involved, but they are completely unfamiliar with the exact situation at hand, which means they are completely 100% qualified to speculate. Isn't that? And so,
all right.
Who else does the nightly news go to than somebody who is completely qualified to speculate?
Chemical weapons expert Hamish de Breton Gordon walked us through the crime scene.
Heading towards the sort of center of town.
He thinks the fast-acting poison was likely smeared on something they touched.
This stuff, if breathed in, can kill you instantaneously. If absorbed through the skin, which I think is the case in this particular attack, then within minutes, if not hours.
British authorities now say they think the poison was left on Skripal's front door.
Now, the chat room points out, and you can see in this photo that, boy, if I should scroll up just to really get the full effect. But if it's on the front door, why have they been just casually standing next to the?
Because probably it's already been decontaminated and everything.
You would think so, right?
Yeah,
Except for they have completely quarantined off the park benches that they died on. They've closed off the roads around that park. They have.
Oh, so it wasn't the front door.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because if it was, I wouldn't be standing that close.
Yeah, I mean, they literally closed the roads around the park to prevent exposure to the park benches.
But this is okay. Got it.
Hanging out. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I
That's
don't.
interesting.
Yeah, that is. Isn't it? And right here in this photo, you wouldn't even think they'd be that close.
Well, wait a minute. Are we sure that's not an edit?
No.
Or are they Photoshop? Or...
No, but let's assuming she is standing in their front yard, like it seems to be.
Right.
Even if she's 35 feet from the front door, you would think they would at least have some tape up since they've blocked off the entire park
Actually,
where they
to be
died.
fair, maybe they have the tape up like farther out that we don't see.
Okay. Yeah, it could be. It could be.
I'm
Who
just
knows?
saying. I'm
Yeah,
just throwing these
could
out
be.
there.
Totally could be that.
British authorities now say they think the poison was left on Skripal's front door. The Kremlin strongly denies it was involved. But Boris Karpich...
Now, so the Kremlin has released, I think it's 12 or 13 questions that are like, here's some basic questions we have about your investigation. And the Russian embassy Twitter account tweeted them out. So if you want to read them, you can. I have linked to one of them in the show notes. And they're pretty good questions, actually. They're pretty good. There's some really good questions in there. But instead of addressing that, they just give you a quick mention here on the NBC News. And what we'll do instead is we go to a former Russian double agent. And we get him to tell you how awful Putin is. I'll spare you that he believes that Putin is a bad guy. But there is an interesting element. They think that maybe Christopher Steele, the Trump dossier guy, could be on a hit list. And I don't think anyone really expected this. There is a bit of a recovery in the works.
And Christopher Steele, author of the infamous Trump-Russia dossier.
And Richard joins us now from London. Richard, tell me more about this hit list.
While we have no way to independently verify the claim of that hit list, a former British intelligence officer familiar with Russia tells us it certainly is plausible. And tonight we're hearing new information that Skripal's daughter's health is improving.
What?
She's reportedly conscious and talking.
Oh,
boy.
So that could be interesting to see where that
Yeah.
goes. Yeah, that could be very interesting.
The chief of a British military laboratory said it was unable to determine the precise source of the nerve agent used in the attack. That casts doubt on earlier statements that blamed Russia directly.
So you remember when we were doing weapons of mass destruction, you had the intelligence agencies who said, we can't fully confirm that Saddam has weapons of mass destruction, but then you had the Bush administration saying, well, we are using their information as well as other sources of information, and when we combine them all, it clearly indicates that Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. That is exactly what's happening right now. So the office in the UK that is responsible for analyzing this entire thing can't actually say it's Russia. They don't actually have any indication that it is Russia. But the UK government's going, well, but you know what? We're using that as many sources. So I'll play this. You be the judge.
That casts doubt on earlier statements that blamed Russia directly.
We have not verified the precise source, but we provided the scientific information to the government.
But you have not been able to establish at Porton Down that this was made in Russia?
As I said, it's our job to provide, the scientific evidence that identifies
what
the particular nerve agent is, but it's not our job to then say where that actually was manufactured.
So to be clear, you're not able at Porton Down to say where it is from?
We haven't yet been able to do that.
Now, why that matters, because that seems totally reasonable. They can identify what it is, but they can't tell you.
Scientific stuff.
Totally seems reasonable.
Yeah, makes sense.
The issue is that the politicians have been quoting them as the source of it came from Russia.
But when I look at the evidence, the people from Porton Down, they were absolutely categorical. And I asked the guy myself, I said, are you sure? And he said, there's no doubt.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of backlash for that. Turns out there's a bit of a dial down now. So now what it is the sophistication level of the attack could only have been pulled off by Russia.
Another little spin.
Ergo, it must have gotten improved directly by Putin.
The UK Defence Research Laboratory, however, maintains that the substance used is Novichok, a military-grade nerve agent. The British government swiftly moved to defend its position by claiming that its accusations against Russia remain valid despite this latest revelation from Porton Down. It says it's working from a larger intelligence picture and that Russia has a record of state-sponsored assassinations and views its former intelligence officers as targets. Britain also says there's no other explanation it deems plausible. But with scientists unable to verify the source, it's possible London may have jumped the gun, as Murad Gazdiev explains.
Scotland Yard said it first. They need time. This was a professional assassination attempt. Whoever did it made sure to leave as few traces as possible.
An investigation of this complexity and size will understandably take some time, and we ask for the public's continued support and patience.
The media.
Actually, they didn't. I don't know why they didn't even play the whole quote. The whole quote is they asked for 3 months, is what they asked for.
Didn't need much time. Pundits forewent the whole boring, investigation part, but that's the media, no surprise. They need their ratings.
Oh, God.
I've been watching RT for a long time, and I've come to an understanding with these sons of bitches. If they mock it, there's a good... what RT doesn't want is they don't want a highlight reel of them claiming something wasn't true when it was true, because the mainstream media runs with it.
Yeah.
So generally, if it's something that Moscow is responsible for, RT just doesn't say a thing. They're silent on the subject. They're quiet because they really, really, really got burned a couple of times. I don't know if you remember, after Liz, there was the redhead that we used to talk about all the time that we don't talk about anymore.
What?
Abby Martin. Who's still doing Empire Files. She's still doing her own thing. She's really kind of become a pretty strong independent content producer. But there was they tried to get Abby to do a certain thing on RT, and it blew up in their face. And ever since the Abby backfire, they just don't say anything. So when RT hits it really hard and they kind of have a mocking tone, I don't know. You could read that different ways.
Politicians, they only needed a week.
It is highly likely that Russia was responsible. We do hold Russia culpable for the attempted murder. Russia is culpable.
Our quarrel is with Putin's Kremlin, and we think it overwhelmingly likely that it was his decision.
What?
That's the problem. Yeah, you know what Axion in the chat room points out? You know what they need, Chase, is more cameras.
If
they just had more surveillance.
Only if the UK had just another camera, maybe one in the mailbox.
A couple more cameras.
One on the light pole.
Just one right there in the door peephole.
Right on the horseshoe.
Yeah.
That's
Put one of those large aspect ratio, like bubble cams, that way you
just
get
a wide angle.
Yeah.
Just simple wide angle.
Get the whole thing.
A special session of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is due to be held Wednesday.
So what he just said, and it's really hard to understand, and I think this is part of the problem, is there is a UN group all about dangerous, deadly chemical weapons. And there are members of this group, and your friend and mine,
buddy,
the Western nations, are part of that. So is your good buddy.
Oh, my friend? One of my friends?
Vlad. He's part of this as well. And so as a part of this group, they have the power to call for an emergency session. Russia has called for an international investigation via the UN as an arbiter to determine the cause of this chemical poisoning attack. Now, that's not something that I would expect from the guilty party, but that's what this news anchor just told you.
Session of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is due to be held Wednesday. Moscow called for the meeting over the poisoning of former double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in the UK. The organization has said that some of the questions posed by Russia could be answered as early as this evening.
Yeah, and so these are some of the questions that they run through the clip, which they're really good questions. They're totally worth asking, but they don't voice them, so I'll just skip ahead.
Meanwhile, several British media outlets have come up with theories of their own. Anastasia Churkina breaks down some of them for us.
Tomorrow will actually mark the one-month anniversary since the Skripal saga started, yet we haven't seen any real proof, and Russia is still waiting for that with open arms. And while all of this has been unraveling, we've certainly seen the press here in the UK living it up with catchy headlines and deciphering curious details of what could have happened with this whole incident. One of the ones that's been circulating around recently, one about a so-called secret bank account. There's been reportedly stories going around that Yulia Skripal, the daughter of Sergei Skripal, who has been in coma with him in the hospital, she had gained access just days before the poisoning to about $200,000. This was connected to her deceased brother who had died a year ago, and the media have been talking about whether or not this has any connection to what happened with them.
It's like a backup plan. Like, oh, she's surviving. Smear.
Oh man.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of any of this because we're so far away. But it's interesting. Here we are 1 month, and the folks doing the investigation asked for 3 months.
Yeah.
We here in Seattle, we're closing down
the Russian embassies.
Closing it down.
Yeah. Or consulate, sorry.
Whatever.
But,
house.
No, I mean,
the House of Spies.
We talked about the whole evidence thing, and I think it was last week I said, we really don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know if they know some secret information or some stuff. Now we're finding out that the scientific investigative wing is saying, well, we know what the chemical is, but we haven't been able to determine the source. All right, so either someone's not telling us something, or this was completely, or the origin is completely false. We don't know.
If this is one of those,
at least the public.
If you are fired up about this topic, like if this is the topic of the show that you're currently the most passionate about, go check out the @Russia Embassy USA or whatever it is. I got it linked in the show notes, where they have the 12 questions or whatever it is. Because what you'll realize is that we, as average citizens who don't deal with chemical weapons, have no frickin' clue what's involved with a chemical weapons investigation. And the only reason why this has gotten as much momentum as it has is because the public is stupid as shit about this stuff, and the media can say whatever they want, or Theresa May can say whatever she wants, and we are too ignorant to understand what's involved in a proper investigation.
Yep.
So we just take it at the face value. So I'll give the Russian embassy Twitter account that. I don't know about their questions, but reading those questions, because they're quotes from like the international UN body rules, like, oh yeah, of course they would have to have source samples in order to verify that they were from Russia, and of course they would need to be able to cite that in an investigation, and they haven't done that. Like, there's all of this stuff that you read and you go, oh yeah, I don't know anything about a chemical weapons investigation. And when you read these questions, you're like, how come we've not answered these yet?
Exactly.
It's so weird. Let's shift. While we're talking about Russia, let's shift gears and go to the Russia investigation. Your good buddy,
my friend,
Judge Napolitano,
the judge,
was on Fox to tell us about the biggest hint yet in the direction of Bob's investigation.
Robert Mueller and the scope of his investigation and the powers that he has. Well, he has now found that the Trump campaign's Rick Gates knew he was speaking to this Russian intel agent. What do we know about this?
This is the biggest hint that Bob Mueller has shown us of the existence of what the non-lawyers are calling collusion. The legal term is conspiracy to receive something of value from a foreign person, entity, or government when you're running a federal campaign. That very agreement is criminal. So Rick Gates has apparently told Bob Mueller, among many other things, yeah, when I was in the campaign, I was speaking to this Russian intelligence agent. Wow, what were you speaking about? Were you getting information from him? Were you getting anything of value from him? Remember, Gates is Manafort's partner before, right, during, and after the campaign. Gates has pleaded guilty to a small fraction of what he was charged with, and is now a treasure trove for Bob Mueller.
I mean, at least you can say that, right? So what else are we going to learn on this front? Where will Mueller go with that new information? As you called it, he's really only giving us a hint at what he's saying.
Correct. The interesting question is, why is he hinting at this? I think he's hinting at it because he wants to say to the no collusion crowd, which is many well-intended people. Where's the collusion?
Right.
I have something here. I'm not going to show all of it to you until I develop it more. He's obviously going to develop it more. Person A, whose name we don't know, is obviously a Russian official who's not going to come to the U.S. because the minute he does, they'll arrest him.
Yeah. Judge Andrew Napolitano.
Thanks, Judge.
Wow. So interestingly, that was on Fox, and
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, you know, because there has, I think, has
not
been,
on Fox and Friends though.
I think there has clearly been enough. Well, I guess I'll rephrase it like this. I bet you, if you dug deep enough, you would find deep collusion with the Mexican government and the Canadian government, and probably any major government. How could I not think the Israeli government? Right?
Maybe it's time to bring it all down, right?
It's like whatever hole you want to go down,
yeah,
you'll
true.
find it.
Yeah,
I've thought that for a long time.
Right.
But
the part
does it represent a newer, like, renewed effort?
It's tough because you're going to hear about, well, what about this person? Then what about this? And you know, you're going to keep going back, 20, 30, 40 years, where does it stop? What I'm hoping for is maybe a return to some truth, and at least a return to some normalcy, and and I think this is part of the reason why we don't hear much from Mueller, because he's got an immense amount of pressure, I believe, where he's been tasked with this investigation. He's trying, in my opinion, to be very uber thorough. I
think about how history is going to look at this.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who's just like, "Come on, Bob, will you do something already?" And I keep telling him he's got one shot at this. He needs to be thorough and legit, because if he screws this up in any potential way,
he'll have every historian for the rest of time.
And it's not just historians; it's our government, it's politics, it's everything. So, I mean, a lot of people think he's doing a headhunt. No, I think he's just being uber thorough.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah.
And there's no timeline in his world. He doesn't care about midterms. He doesn't care about 2020.
He's financed with this budget. He's financed for another year.
Yeah, he doesn't care about timelines.
So there was a story this week that I don't think much. There hasn't been much with Donald Trump so far that has surprised me. Because a lot of it goes back to either campaign promises or it goes back to reactions to what's going on.
Right.
And there's I can follow the logic process. But this next story did really kind of surprise me until I had the full context. But the headline you may have seen may have shocked you as well. And that is Donald Trump is sending the military to the border. And it was a slow build this week. It started with comments from the president.
Look at Korea. We have a border at Korea.
This is a live event.
We have a wall of soldiers. We don't get paid very much for this, do we? You look at that, nobody comes through.
All right, so first off, he's talking about the DMZ. He's talking about something that was formed in 1950s, and they're still technically at war, by the way. This is just an armistice.
I guess not quite equivalent to Mexico.
This is not the same thing. I'm sorry.
I mean, you're right.
I know what kind of example he's going with.
I see his point, though. Yeah,
I do see where he's going.
This is a good tactic. I think this is genuinely a good tactic.
So are we at war with Mexico? Is that what he's trying to imply?
I didn't take it there myself.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, you have North Korea and South Korea still technically at war with each other.
Yeah,
they have military troops at.
Yeah. Fair point. No, I follow you.
It's
I
not
hadn't
the same.
taken it there. You're right. It is not the same.
Yeah.
It is not the same. Yeah, it is not. However, if you don't go that far, because what you've done is you've gone, okay, I take your logical conclusion and I take it to the very next logical conclusion. Was what you've done.
Yeah, that's true.
But if you stop and you go, well, what the hell? Why are we paying for these guys' border when we're not paying for our own border?
We don't take care of it. Think of it. We spend billions of dollars in other countries maintaining their borders, and we can't maintain our borders in our own country.
I think that super resonates. I think that, and I don't use that lightly. I think that maybe, dare I say, you ready for this, Chase? You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I dare say that hyper resonates with the base.
Hyper
resonates with the base.
Like a triggering almost.
But you know what I'm saying there?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Like how can we pay all this money and barely make anything in this other country? Like I think that plays.
Their borders, and we can't maintain our borders in our own country. Is there something a little bit wrong with that? Think of it. We spend billions and billions of dollars. Look, North and South Korea, 32,000 soldiers. The finest equipment, barbed wire all over the place.
You think it's kind of funny that he keeps doing this wavy body motion?
He's drawing the border with his hand. That's what he's doing.
He must have been looking at it recently.
Yeah.
Though. It's just interesting to see him make that body motion.
Yeah.
Because it's so animated.
Yeah.
He moves his arm. His arm.
He's trying to emphasize that their border's not straight. It's curvy.
I'm just saying this man's body, this 70-year-old man's body, is looser than mine. I can't move my body like that.
You mean this healthy, 100% healthy,
great genes
guy.
Yes.
And soldiers, the finest equipment, barbed wire all over the place. We protect that whole thing. Nobody comes through, but our country. We don't do it. Things are changing, folks. But now is the time to rebuild our country, to take care of our people, and to fight for our great American workers for a change.
So it starts to build, this conversation about the border and sending the troops down there. And I think Donald Trump is one of these men who is really good at dealing with the week's emergency. And he takes in a lot of different information sources, and he, I think, is also really perceptive to what plays well with what is commonly called his, quote, base, which I would describe as the economic disadvantaged in America, which is the majority. But his base, we'll just to make it easy, we'll say his base. So he is really good, I think, at reading the mood, the tempo of his base. And when his base is upset about something, he often responds on Twitter, or he'll even go as far as taking executive action. And I will give you Exhibit A of what I believe is an upset Donald Trump base. This is from the New York Times opinion.
Obviously, you and I could talk for hours about our differences on Trump, but that's not why I want to talk to you today, as you know. In recent days, you've inaugurated the phrase former Trumpers.
So this is somebody who's pretty well known as being a big Donald Trump fan, Ann Coulter.
What are former Trumpers, and why should he be terrified of them?
The former Trumpers should keep Donald Trump awake at night. We're the ones who didn't care about the Access Hollywood tape. He had absolute rock solid, locked us in on support because we thought we wouldn't be betrayed. Finally. He could sell Ivanka Trump merchandise from the Oval Office if he would just build the wall. If he doesn't have us anymore, no, that's what he should be worried about, because you play those people for suckers. The one who stood by him through thick and thin and thought this was finally something different. Finally, we have a politician who's not going to lie to us. No, former Trumpers should put the fear of God in him.
And I think that's exactly what's been going on.
And wow, that's a great clip, by the way. That's a really good clip, because you know, I've always said it, you know, and I've said it many times on the show, the people that voted for the president were people that were tired. They didn't want a Hillary rewind. They didn't want some sort of, you know, political show game. They wanted somebody that drain the swamp, to shake things up, to make things happen,
to fix the economy for them,
to fix things. And now, with, you know, and with trade tariffs and those kind of things, and those will affect people that work in agricultural businesses. And I know a lot of those people voted for him.
They voted for him because he wasn't a politician.
Right. They voted for him because they thought he was a deal maker, that he was going to make things good for them again. You know, the whole tagline.
That's the significance of the wall. That's all of this somehow has gotten into the wall and immigration.
President Trump tonight signaling a dramatic escalation in his crackdown on illegal immigration.
Until we can have a wall and proper security, we're going to be guarding our border with the military. That's a big step.
Later saying he'll be meeting with Defense Secretary Jim Mattis.
I think that it's something we have to do.
The Pentagon now readying options. So could we see U.S. troops patrolling the border? It wouldn't be unprecedented. The Obama administration sent 1,200 National Guard members to the southern border in 2010 to combat drug smuggling. President Trump's complaint about weak U.S. border security now in its third day.
We have horrible and very unsafe laws in the United States.
Despite the number of people arrested trying to cross illegally into the U.S. from Mexico last year plunging to its lowest level since 1971, Mr. Trump is seizing on reports of a caravan of migrants, claiming credit for stopping them.
Did you hear about these reports of a caravan of migrants?
And this whole story is an inaccuracy of
supposedly like some nonprofit was going down there and advertising to them that they can come in and they can ask for amnesty and they have an 80% chance.
And they're not from Mexico. They're traveling through Mexico.
That's true. Yeah.
I think they're from Guatemala, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is something that happens yearly. They don't break through the border. They don't like sneak across. They do it legitimately. They do it through the process.
You gotta take advantage of a situation.
I know,
Chase.
but
that's how the political game works.
I mean, the story goes, and I did not confirm this with my sources, but the story goes he saw this on Fox and Friends. He saw the story happening and immediately tweeted about it. I mean, almost immediately. Honduras, thank you, the Wetsy.
In their trek north.
Like, come on.
I have just heard that the caravan coming up from Honduras is broken up, and Mexico did that. And they did it because, frankly, I said, you really have to do it.
Mexican authorities didn't address that claim, but said they were offering protections to some of the migrants and deporting others. The president today also reinforcing his support for Baltic allies anxious about their own shared border with Russia, repeatedly touting a tough track record despite having never publicly condemned Vladimir Putin.
Probably nobody's been tougher to Russia than Donald Trump.
Probably.
Probably.
So,
what's the definition of probably?
Maybe.
Maybe. See, maybe.
Okay, so it's been building. It's been building. Send the troops. Send the troops. Send the troops. Send the troops. Today, the Homeland Secretary Security said, "Yeah, we're going to send the troops."
It's time to act. So let's talk a little bit about that today. In an effort to prevent such a consequence, the President has directed that the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security work together with our governors to deploy the National Guard to our southwest border to assist the Border Patrol. The President will be signing a proclamation to that effect today.
So an executive order to send the National Guard. And I got to wonder, is there a money-making opportunity? Like, could I go down there and cook? Is there a way for me to make some side hustle on this? Because that seems like whenever you send a large group of people to an area, all of a sudden, they immediately need services. So if anybody has any ideas, tweet me at Chris Elias. I'll jump on Lady Jupes and I'll podcast from the border as I make a new living. But in the meantime, we have nothing but high notes left, Mr. Chase. So
yes, Chris.
Do you want to, I don't know, maybe
I just can't.
Look at the sack for this week?
Before I jump into the sack, I do want to spend a word because I know that our audience might be thinking about something right now. They're like, well, you haven't had any stories about Sinclair.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Actually, just disclaimer, I will cover it. I have some clips for the overtime coming up.
And Chris and I talked about that ahead of time. But as some of you may know, I work for a local TV station in the area, Como Television, KOMO, Channel 4, and which is owned in our parent company, Sinclair Broadcast Group. And I want to be abundantly clear, I am speaking on my own accord. I'm not speaking on behalf of the company or anybody there, but I can't comment on the current things that are happening right now with everything with that. I can say that I enjoy tremendously what I do, and the people that work there at the station are truly dedicated to covering news, keeping those powerful people accountable with what they do, and just generally are awesome people. And so I just want you, while you may agree or disagree with things that are happening right now, please give respect to those hardworking people that truly love doing what they do. And I'm hoping that, in the end of this, we can all be happy, respect one each other, and listen to each other. And that's all I have to say about it. But feel free, if you want, you can tweet me, and I can
there you go.
try to fill in more for you.
Mr. Chase, too, I'll remind people, too, you're working down in the bowels of the IT. You're doing
engineering and IT. Yep.
You're doing the good work of the technology department down there. So you're not even involved in the...
No, I'm not involved in anything.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, If you really want to know what I've been like up to my eyeballs in right now, is our weather system. I've been working in our
yeah,
weather
but that sounds super cool. Like, there's some cool like tech in that.
Yeah, new graphics, new weather maps and models and radar.
You know,
That's
the nice thing is, you know what it is like the nice thing is like you get to be buddy with the reporters.
Yeah.
You get to like be the fly on the wall, but you don't have to have like the responsibility of any of what goes on the air.
There is pressure there, absolutely.
That's nice.
And you know, I get to see everybody from the general manager to the anchors to the reporters, photographers, and you know, fellow engineers, salespeople.
Oh my gosh, it's Anderson
awesome.
Cooper!
It's a great place to be. Great people.
And Anderson Cooper.
So hey, let's jump into the SAC. We had a great SAC this week. I remembered to send it ahead of time. So remember, if you're part of Club 33, head over to the SAC. I sent out an email about once a week before the show, so keep an eye open. Verituna says, hey, I really think aside from the big international stuff like wars, accusations, and expulsions, we really need to drill down into this whole suppressing of views and the shutting down of debate on a massive scale. Aside from the Sinclair exposure, which let's face it, is neither isolated nor a surprise, and the total lack of coverage of the Gaza shootings, which is disturbing, the fact that one user got so fed up of being censored by YouTube, she went postal and started shooting people should be a red flag to everyone.
So do you think there is that is it. So Veritunda is drawing a line between sort of consolidated media and YouTube, which is also consolidated by Google. Yeah, actually, I see that line now.
Yeah, totally.
That's a really good theme there. I see that.
We already know how every single week Unfiltered is flagged for one thing or another.
Yeah,
but it's not
happening more and more too.
But it's not alone, I am sure.
You know what? Also, just a quick pause. Yeah. You guys only and that's only a percentage of you, because most of you are downloading on audio, but a percentage of you notice when we get flagged on YouTube.
Absolutely.
When it gets completely pulled down. But almost every single week we get a copyright strike, and the way it works on YouTube now is they just demonetize the video, but they allow it to continue to stay. And behind the scenes, I'm fighting on the grounds of fair use.
Yeah, Chris is filing requests all the time.
And the video never gets pulled. It's only when it's like this massive violation. So you guys probably see 1 out of 10 times where we're fighting with YouTube publicly.
Yeah. Will we ever get to see an awakening that things are as horribly broken and it's up to everyone to try to fix it? Maybe. I think you're starting to see that a little bit right now with the Facebook situation and the privacy. A little bit. I mean,
I'm
people
not going to dignify that with an answer.
People are starting to realize a little bit, but they're not like, oh, well.
I think it's the beginning of the realization that your information and the signals that you send to these companies is at least of some value. Like, we've begun that process. And I think it's going to be a multi-year process.
Michael writes in and says, hey, in regards to all the tariff disputes, is this just political posturing? It seems that there would be there would be need to be an economic collapse to turn the tides of this complex. There would have to be. The U.S. economy is far too dependent on China, and a negotiator like Trump can only make a bigly deal when he stands in the greater position of power. Trump can't fix it, and oh, Nancy, the establishment politicians who created the environment for Trump to thrive don't want to fix it. I know we have the enigmatic, sorry, I can't speak today, Sheriff Woody, but is there anyone else in our political system that we can count on? Seriously, as I get off my soapbox, who are some of the politicians you gentlemen believe can make a difference right now? Fisher Nunez 2020? Of course, I'm referring to Antoine and Devin, respectively.
Nice.
Is there anybody, I've said this, I might have said this before. Don't, the way you make change in this kind of thing is, starting at a more local level, bringing fresh and new ideas and, maybe going in as an independent or libertarian candidate and just starting grassroots stuff, in my opinion. You look at what Gary Johnson tried to do. Yeah, he got like 4%. You're not going to make a big impact nationally. You got to start small.
No, I think the way to really make a difference is to abandon ship, go to somewhere like New Zealand, and just watch it fall from afar.
And get some popcorn. Hey, Mickey T wants to know, hey, I just want to call y'all dirty, filthy centrist. How dare you look objectively at the issues? Filthy, no-side, taking lowlives.
It's the worst, isn't it? So
Love
frustrating.
You. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Mickey. And finally, last but certainly not least, John writes in and says, hey, congrats on your de-douching from the No Agenda Boys. Thank you.
You know what? I got to give massive credit to John C. Dvorak. He did his homework after the show. He found our shout out to them from like way back in the archives.
Oh yeah,
because we maybe to our own mistake haven't properly given a shout out to the No Agenda show for a while.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I really do love those guys. I love them tremendously. I was hoping to even meet those guys when they were doing their tour across the country a while back.
Yeah. The truth of the matter is those two individuals are professionals through and through. They have a great show, a good product, and they established a genre of podcasts now that we aspire to. And our Red Book is an homage to the No Agenda show.
It's a physical red book, actually.
Yeah. We bought a physical red book as an homage to John and to Adam, who are just both just terrific producers and content producers and broadcasters. However, that bell is mine.
Yeah.
I have had that.
You defend it, buddy.
I have had that bell for years since SciBite. That is my own bell. And my Maxine Waters clip that I play on the show.
My millennials, stay woke. Reclaiming my time.
My ass watched hours of C-SPAN to get those clips. And producer Matt has watched hours of C-SPAN to get other clips. Yeah. Those are our own clips. So but to their credit, they then followed up in a second show. After they douchebagged us, they de-douched us. John listened to the show. He heard our story about how we found each other via No Agenda. And they gave us some props. So, you know what? I gotta say, they like at the first episode was like, oh damn, but the second episode was like, damn, look at that. That is true like journalism right there. They did a good job.
I will say, Chris, the weekend though for me personally was kind of rough.
Oh yeah,
because we had the douching, we were douche, and then the Sinclair story broke.
I know,
and so I'm just like, I'm not feeling good about my life.
The internet, the internet hated you over the weekend.
Everybody hated me. Yeah, and then I got the tweets about Devin. So it was a full circle thing.
It was good. It was good.
Otherwise,
so the sack will hopefully make you feel better. Just keep grabbing Chase's sack.
Just keep
grabbing it and sending in your messages.
Just gently massage.
Yeah.
By the way, John says also, otherwise, what's up with Syria? Leaving or not leaving? Special circumstances are required for the president to mobilize the National Guard. Can the governors complain? Just thinking out loud. And by the way, what Trump is going to be doing with the National Guard, the National Guard has no arresting or holding powers at all. They can only really assist. And on top of that, previous presidents, I think going back to Carter, have sent troops down to the border.
Now, to the Syria point, stay tuned. I will have a clip in the overtime to address that.
So, hey, as a reminder, as Chris reminded you guys, if you want to be part of this sack, head on over to patreon.com/unfilter, join Club 33. And there, if you jump in, I will send out a note every week before the show, usually on the day before. You can jump in and say hi to the fans and tell us what's on your mind.
All right. Are you ready for the high note, buddy?
Mommy needs a joint.
Mommy needs a joint.
So let's start out with why we do the high note. How about a clip that reminds us all why we're here
today? Are we going back to episode 1?
No.
Sorry.
Actually, it was episode 1.
It was episode 1.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
It was from the very beginning.
I remember.
No, but this is like a modern day reason why we think the high note is an important segment on the show.
All right, we begin with this hour's big story. Right now, police and health officials in the Chicago area are scrambling to track down and shut down the source of synthetic marijuana that is killing people.
Oy.
So far, 3 people have been arrested. They're charged with trying to sell the fake weed to a convenience store. 2 of the suspects made their initial appearance today before a judge. Now, let's explain why it's so dangerous. Preliminary testing of some of that fake weed showed it was laced with a toxic substance frequently used in rat poison.
Oh.
The Illinois Department of Health says right now there have been at least 70 reports of people who have experienced terrible symptoms like severe bleeding, including bloody gum. Some even say they coughed up blood after taking the drug. So far, 2 people have lost their lives, and officials fear more people could die from this. Our chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, joins me now, and you've done a lot of research into marijuana, the effects of it, the legalization of it, and now the replication of it, right? This manufactured weed, if you will. Let me ask you, explain what it is and how we would know that it is manufactured synthetic marijuana.
Well, it can be hard to know, and that's part of the problem because this is a very unregulated industry. As we've talked about, Michaela, what we're talking about basically is these guys are taking any kind of plant material and they're basically creating these chemicals that have some cannabinoids in them, basically can stimulate the receptors in your body, the cannabinoid receptors, and they spray it on this plant-like substance, and that's what they're calling synthetic cannabinoids. It's a little bit of a misnomer because it's really not marijuana at all. It's a totally synthetic substance that stimulates some of these same receptors. It is, even in the stores sometimes, and it's going to be sold in convenience stores, gas stations, as you mentioned. Sometimes it's sold as an herbal or liquid incense. So it's not even sold as something that you would consume, but it's then placed near the cigars, for example, in a gas station. So it's a really, this is a new thing that's sort of happening real time.
Fake weed. And we wouldn't have fake weed if regular weed wasn't illegal.
I was going to say, in Illinois, is it legal or illegal?
What, weed?
Yeah.
Illegal.
Exactly.
So here's the issue, is the opioid addiction crisis is nuts. I mean, in Washington alone, it is unmanageable.
Trump administration is following through on a campaign promise to combat the opioid crisis as the death toll rises across the country from the highly addictive drugs. CDC statistics show more than 63,000 people died from overdoses in 2016, up more than 10,000 from the previous year.
Wow.
Of that, opioids accounted for 2/3 of the fatalities. Deaths from synthetic opioids more than doubling, and heroin overdoses rising as well.
So this is a serious, serious, serious issue. So that's why when a new study comes out that shows that states that have legalized cannabis have less opioid addictions, that's a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when a second study comes out, 2 independent studies come out that show that states that legalize cannabis have less opioid addictions, it's kind of a big deal.
Legalizing marijuana could lead to fewer people taking prescription painkillers, and experts say that means people might be less likely to overdose on opioids. 2 studies released today looked at Medicare and Medicaid patients in states where pot is legal. It found that opioids were prescribed less often and taken less in those states. Medical marijuana has been called a lower-risk alternative to opioids by advocates, but some disagree. Other studies have found marijuana might lead to future opioid use. Experts want states and the federal government to pay for more studies to see if there is a link.
Well,
more studies.
Yeah, they need the studies and not use the crappy stuff and actually legitimately use what they use out there.
Yeah,
and
that's
go
a good
for
point. But 2 different studies that have been published in a journal. And by the way, interesting little side note, those 2 studies were not conducted in states that have legalized, but they were analyzing states that have. So it's not like they had a lot of skin in the game.
Right.
They were coming from states that hadn't legalized.
It was
yet.
Independent stuff. You don't.
2 different
they're not
ones.
Even in, yeah.
Yeah.
Get hard numbers out there.
That were then published in a peer-reviewed journal.
See.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Wow, which wasn't squashed by pharma? I'm shocked by this.
So we would love to have your support. Patreon.com/unfilter. Check out the new site, unfilter.show.
Unfilter Show.
Get the links for this week's episode at unfilter.show/275. You can plug our RSS feed into your favorite podcast catcher, unfilter.show/RSS.
Yes.
And Mr. Chase, there's probably some places they could find you throughout the week, perhaps a Twitter?
I do a social media thing called Twitter. Yes, twitter.com/Nunes, Nunes. There's a Geek Gamer thing on there as well, Geek Gamer TV on Twitter.
I'll take it.
And we got Discords too, and YouTubes and Twitches and all that stuff. But hey, what about you, Chris? I mean,
me?
You have thoughts.
Me?
You share those things.
Me?
Where can people find them?
At Chris LAS for my Twitter. I won't spam you. That's my pledge. The network's at Jupiter Signal. The IRC for this show, irc.geekshed.net. And then there is a dedicated chat room, #Unfilter. Join that.
Nice.
Get in there. Get in there. You can join us live on Wednesdays. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for our live time. JBLive.tv is where we stream it. Dang, Chase, I think that's just about it. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Unfiltered program. Stay tuned because the overtime's coming up, and as you probably have gathered, there's several things in there that may be applicable to your interests. But if you're done with your meat and potatoes, you gotta go. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week. Okay.
Coming to you live from the Jupiter satellite.
Yeah, right.
Circling Jupiter.
JB Titles. JB Titles.
Come on down to JB Titles, where we got loads of titles. Come on down.
So let's see. We should probably base it off something with the intro. Do you remember what the intro was about?
No.
It was about the Russia poisoning.
I was just gonna say Russia and just guess on that.
Yeah, because fuck.
It's always Russia.
God, man. Ever since about
WrestleMania Sunday. What?
Ever since about July or June of 2016, it's been Russia, 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 Russia. So I'd love it when it's something from the intro, so I'm going to play it again. This is Unfiltered, and it is episode 275 for April 4th.
Tonight, a defiant Kremlin lashing out.
Defiant Putin could be one title.
And placing new blame, insisting again that it had nothing to do with
Putin Blame Game could be another title.
With a brazen assassination attempt of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia last month in Salisbury, England.
No other country has a combination of the capability, the intent and the motive to carry out such an act.
Sources say the sophisticated nature of the attack that included heavy doses of the nerve agent placed on Sergei Skripal's front doorknob points directly to orders from the Kremlin.
Doorknob to death?
Ooh, that feels meta, but like it.
Is doorknob 2 words or 1, actually? From Russia with Love, we've done too many times, my friend. We've done that too many times. Doorknob to death?
That's very meta, and I like it. I kind of like
it. Yeah, because remember, it's all getting blamed now on the doorknob. That's the big story. It's the doorknob.
People are starting to like it.
This sophisticated poisoning.
It's a sophisticated hit job.
So I guess if it's on their doorknob, it must have been. I guess the presumption is that they put their hand on the outside of the doorknob as they closed it and locked it.
Or is it like a ketchup packet where you just kind of?
It's just like a ketchup packet. It's exactly like a ketchup packet. A ketchup packet, Chase.
All right, there's the chemical weapons.
Oh my God, Chase! Oh my God! All right, here. Listen, I don't even have the Jupiter Loop. Oh, it's in here twice. Oh, I didn't know I had it in there twice.
Oh, well, that's what
happens.
Yeah.
All right, so doorknob. What was it? Doorknob, is that one word? Yeah, that is. No, it's not. It's not one word.
And it's KNOB. You said door.
Oh,
NOB.
I did. That's what my mistake was.
Yes.
I knew it looked wrong. Doorknob to death. Doorknob. What did I say? Doorknob to death.
Doorknob.
Yeah. Doorknob to death.
Doorknob to death.
Unfilter 274. Do you like that? I mean, it's kind of weird.
Doorknob to death.
It's esoteric, my friend. I will describe it as.
And I already know what the album art's going to be. It's going to be a black and white picture of a doorknob.
That makes me hungry. Let's see. I haven't eaten enough today.
Knock 3 times.
The Russian runaround from Russia with poison. Russia open arms. The Russian whatever. Testing Russian nerves. Testing Russia's nerves isn't bad because it's a play on nerve gas.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good.
Testing Russia's nerves isn't bad, actually. I do like that because it's like a play on the nerve gas. And
I like that too. Oh, that's a good one.
JBTitles.com. All right, so excuse my misspelling of doorknob and the Russian doorknob. What do you think of Russian doorknob? Not as good of doorknob of death?
Not as good.
All right, so excuse my misspelling. We would spell it correctly. I spelled knob, N-O-B. But go boat at JBTitles.com. The Russian runaround, why is that the winner? Why is the Russian runaround pulling ahead right now? What kind of sense does that make, Chase? Can you explain how the Russian runaround is currently our leading title? I don't understand.
I don't know. I mean, but if testing Russia's nerves is pulling ahead as it is, it's now just pulled into first.
Testing Russia's nerves?
Yeah.
You want to go with that?
Yeah, I think we are a democratic republic here on the Unfiltered show.
At least when it appeals to us.
When it's not Russia. So
when it's not a Russian election. All right.
There has been no collusion between Chris and I.
All right, well, let's do it. You want to do Testing Russia's Nerves?
This is the best show. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm struggling to still understand Veratunda's The Russian Runaround. What am I missing?
Veratunda, can you tell us?
I feel like there must be something there that I'm missing.
No collusion.
All right. Testing Russia's nerves it is. I think that's a pretty good title. I like that, actually. The more I think about it, as it sets in like a good marinade, I like that a lot, actually.
I haven't had a good marinade in a while.
Oh, you got to have a good marinade.
Yes.
You got to have a good marinade.
Oh, JBot got hacked. Well, there you go. That's what happened.
Oh, okay. Well, good enough.
We actually, I think JBot's become an R-bot.
Need JBot security.
You need an R-bot.
You know, Putin bot.
Putin bot.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Say goodbye, Chase.
Goodbye, Chase.
See you next week. Hi, everyone, and welcome to TechSnap. This is Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly systems network and administration podcast. We recorded this episode on April 3rd, 2018. It's brought to you by our three great sponsors, Ting, IX Systems, and DigitalOcean. My name is Chris, and joining me every single week is my co-host, the tech, the admin, and the presenter, Mr. Payne, Mr. Wes Payne. Hello, Wes.
Hello there, Chris.
Hello, Wes. Are you ready to jump into our warm-up story for this week?
Oh, am I ever?
Okay, then let's start with MyFitnessPal. When they announced earlier this week, well, it was actually Under Armour, the company that owns them, that they had suffered a data breach impacting the information of roughly 150 million users, initially, to you and I, things didn't seem so bad.
At first, it looked like really the only thing that had been exposed were usernames, email addresses, and passwords. And, that's not great.
Yeah.
But it seems like, at least at first, it seemed like Under Armour systems were, properly segmented enough that things like birthdays, location information, credit card numbers, more sensitive information hadn't been scooped up.
Sure.
Plus, at least according to the company, the breach occurred in late February and was discovered by March 25th, meaning it did a public disclosure of this information in under a week, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
Under Armour was also quick to point out that they were using the well-regarded bcrypt hashing function, right? So it seems like there had been a lot of intention behind this. They had some decent security practices in place and were by design using a hashing algorithm designed for security. But as always, things aren't entirely rosy here, Chris. While Under Armour says the majority of accounts were protected with Bcrypt, the remainder weren't so lucky.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so in a Q&A that happened a little later about the breach, Under Armour admitted that some portion, I'm not sure how much, some portion of the exposed passwords were only hashed using the notoriously weak SHA-1.
Uh-oh.
Less than ideal.
Just a trip down memory lane, the Ashley Madison breach was 36 million passwords, and they pretty quickly came out and said, yeah, we used Bcrypt, don't worry about it, except for 15 million of those 36 million were incorrectly hashed and were vulnerable to pretty quick cracking.
Under Armour hasn't provided any additional information about what transpired with its breach. They do say they're working with security firms and law enforcement to investigate. But right now, it's kind of up in the air. How did this happen? Was it a consequence of the recent acquisition? Was it just upgrade gone wrong? It seems like there's a lot of options.
I think the interesting detail in this story that we do have right now is that some of the passwords, and we don't know how many, are still hashed with SHA-1, which might suggest that at some point they upgraded to Bcrypt, and then when the users logged back in, their passwords were rehashed. We don't know. That's speculation, but there could be more than they're willing to admit that haven't gotten refreshed. It's very likely that users just never simply logged back in, but they still use that password in other locations, and it's just never got touched.
Yeah, right. Those unfortunate security practices are rather widespread. And it does, I think, also underscore the need for, companies to really take these security measures seriously, looking at, especially when you acquire a new company, what their practices are and getting that integrated with your existing systems. It's obviously not easy, but especially when you're buying a company that has a lot of consumer information, you're just going to be a target.
Well, and to sort of pick up on that point a bit more, I wonder if we're seeing a theme here on the TechSnap program. Last week, we talked about Orbitz disclosing a breach of the Expedia system. So Orbitz purchased Expedia, and then one could assume maybe didn't do much with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then it got hacked, and they had a data breach on their hands from a system they don't really know much about anymore. Now we're seeing the same thing here. Under Armour buys the MyFitnessPal databases, brings those systems in place, runs them, and could very potentially just sort of leave them alone. And the reason why I suggest that as a possibility is because I've worked at companies, a couple of different companies, who have gone through mergers, and we've had to sort of try to incorporate their data and their applications, but a lot of times they become sort of quote-unquote legacy, and they're available for reference.
Right, but otherwise they just sit in the corner somewhere. You don't really think about them or touch them.
And we're not deploying any new products using them. Yes. So it's sort of just supporting an existing customer base. So it gets low priority because it's not new revenue generating. And they get neglected.
Yeah, I think that's a lot more common than anyone would like to admit.
Staying within the theme of leaks and breaches, PaneraBread.com has leaked millions of customer records. Yeah, the website for the American chain of sandwiches leaked millions of customer records, including names, email addresses, physical addresses, your birthday, and the last 4 digits of credit card numbers for at least 8 months before it was yanked offline 2 days ago? No, yesterday. Before it was yanked offline yesterday.
You may be wondering, why does Panera Bread have so much of that information? Well, turns out most of their locations you can order online, right? So then, of course, you're going to fill out all your information, your credit card information. Then, in this case, that was just available in plain text from their website and appeared to include records just for anyone who had signed up for an account.
Wow. Just plain text up on PaneraBread.com.
Yeah. Krebs learned about the breach after being contacted by security researcher Dylan Houlihan, who had initially notified Panera way back in August 2nd, 2017. He shared a long message thread between Houlihan and Mike Gustavision, Panera's director of information security. And it appeared that, initially they sort of dismissed Houlihan's report as a likely scam. After a week or so, it does seem to suggest that the company had validated his findings and were at least claiming to be working on a fix.
But then 8 months of time transpire, and the problem never gets fixed. And Houlihan just sort of sits there monitoring the situation, checking in to see if it's getting better, and just gets more and more frustrated. I think he eventually got to a point where he had to tip off Brian Krebs because they were just doing nothing.
Yeah, so all this time, these records are just sitting there in plain text on PaneraBread.com, and it can just be indexed, crawled, searched, pulled down by automated tools with basically no roadblocks. Some of the customer records include unique identifiers that increment by 1 for each new record. So it's also super simple for someone to just scrape every single record and you got them all. The format of the database also lets anyone search for customers via a variety of data points, including by phone number. So if you want to do some more, structured searches, you don't even have to pull all the data down. You can go look right on their website. There is some good news here, though. After Krebs spoke with Panera, the company briefly took the website offline, and as of today, the site's back online, and that data is no longer available.
Subsequent speculation and links shared by Hold Security, a research firm, indicate that the data breach may be way larger than the 7 million customer records that Panera has initially copped to. We don't know yet, and the vulnerabilities also appear to have extended to Panera's commercial division, which serves a lot of catering companies.
That's for sure.
There's a second half to the story, and that is now the security researcher who's spoken out on Medium and his blog post, No, Panera Bread doesn't take security seriously, has gotten a ton of traction this week. So Panera Bread had to make a bunch of public statements. The media picked it up. And one of the poll quotes from the press release was, "We're sorry, and we take security very seriously." And apparently that quote is what triggered the security researcher who found this, because in his estimation, they didn't do anything about it for 8 months. They didn't really take him seriously, and it was designed incredibly poorly to begin with. That does not suggest taking security seriously at all. So he had to push back. He goes to Medium, just tosses tons of email threads on there, puts everything out there in the public domain. And Panera Bread comes across looking a bit negligent here. But I would suspect that this is just one example of what is the norm.
Taking orders online might seem relatively trivial, but when you're the scale of a company like Panera Bread or, any business that size, or if you just have a lot of personal information, it seems like you really this is something you need to think about. You need to think about how do you engage the security researching community, and not just when it's a big name that you'll get in trouble about. It needs to be an honest, legitimate process where you have procedures set up and that sure, you probably will get scammed. That's just going to happen, but it's a necessary evil in this system.
Yeah, I think for businesses, they have to internalize a process and a procedure. So when a researcher emails them and says, "Hey, I found this vulnerability involving your customer data," that business needs to then start a process where it becomes a task who's assigned to somebody to respond to that individual, engage with them, and also start the process of verifying their findings and document the entire thing from beginning to end. Because if it turns out to be true and it goes public, every move you make from the moment you've gotten that first email becomes scrutinized by the public, by the media, and you've really got to have something that is cauterized in your business so that way everybody knows what to do. Because what happens, and this is something we've talked about before on this show, is a lot of times these people just don't get any response at all. And then they get angry. And then they tend to, not always, but they tend to pop off on a blog post somewhere and release way more detail than you would like.
Right. We get less responsible disclosure
Yes.
and more time before actions can be taken.
And you can see here with Panera Bread, it seems pretty clear that when this PB researcher contacts them, they don't take them seriously at all. And then when Brian Krebs contacts them, they react within minutes because it's a name they know he has a public reach. And that's embarrassing. That has to be addressed before it gets to that point.
Yeah, it really does. And it may not seem like you're a technology company when you're a sandwich company, but if you're running a website, you are. And these days you can't have tech without security.
ixsystems.com/TechSnap. Go there to support the show, learn more about IX, and you can grab their white paper. IX Systems is focused on technical excellence and your satisfaction. They know how to build products around open source solutions, and they have received a number of awards and industry accolades. In fact, go check them out. It's pretty impressive. ixsystems.com/awards to see all of those. IX Systems is the light at the end of the tunnel. If you've been fighting with horrible, expensive, kind of slapped together hardware from all of the different vendors out there, where they have a department that works on one part and another department that works on the other part, and then they ship a vendor's OS, You know that doesn't work anymore. Things have just gotten too complicated. IX Systems has experts across the entire chain, from the hardware partnerships to the open source projects, and they'll provide you with white glove service at every single level, from the purchasing part to the putting it in the rack part. Nobody does it like IX. IXsystems.com/TechSnap. Go there, learn more, and find out why so many different organizations like NASA and many others use IX Systems for their infrastructure. For just a small office to a large enterprise and huge compute infrastructure. IXsystems.com/TechSnap. If you thought Meltdown was bad, unprivileged applications being able to read memory at speeds possibly as high as a megabyte per second, definitely not a good thing. But that was nothing. Meet Total Meltdown.
This all stems from a Windows 7 patch, also affecting Windows Server 2008 R2, back in January. It stopped meltdowns, that's a good thing, but it opened up a vulnerability that is so much worse. It allowed any process to read the complete memory contents at gigabytes per second.
Oh, that's way better than megabytes.
Yeah, and it was possible to write to arbitrary memory as well.
Oh, you get write access too?
The whole thing. It's everything. No fancy exploits were needed. Windows 7 already did the hard work of mapping in the required memory into every running process. Exploitation was just a matter of read and write to already mapped in process virtual memory. No fancy API calls, no weird system calls, just read and write.
Okay, so that's pretty basic then.
Yeah, getting a little deeper, the user/supervisor permission bit was set to user in the PML4 self-referencing entry.
Oh, okay.
This made the page tables available to user mode code in every process, and that's the part that's unusual. Normally, the page tables should be accessible only by the kernel.
The PML4, you say?
Yeah, that's right. The PML4 is the base of the 4-level in-memory page table hierarchy that the CPU memory management unit uses to translate the virtual addresses of a process into the actual physical memory addresses that are then referenced in RAM.
Oh, okay. I barely follow.
Now, Windows has a special entry in this topmost PLM4 table that references itself, the so-called self-referencing entry. In Windows 7, that entry is at a fixed position, though it's randomized in Windows 10. This means that the PML4 will always be mapped at that address. This is normally a memory address only made available to the kernel, but since the permission bit was erroneously set to user, any user mode process could access the PML4 and the self-referencing entry. Once they had read and write access, it's just trivial to gain access to the complete physical memory unless it is additionally protected by something like extended page tables, which are used for virtualization. Basically, all you had to do was write their own page table entries into the page tables, and then you can access any physical memory. You can tell if your system is vulnerable if you have a Windows 7 system. If it's patched with 2018-01 or 2018-02, you are vulnerable. If you haven't patched since December 2017, normally not advisable, or if it's patched with the 2018-03-29 patches, then it is secure.
There's a bit of an irony in this, that if you haven't patched since December, you are a little bit more secure in this particular regard right now.
Whoops.
This week on the TechSnap program, we're doing an introduction to Terraform. It's an open source tool that lets you manage infrastructure as code.
So Chris, previously we've had a few chats about configuration management. The idea being, you really can't scale systems if you're having to do a bunch of one-off configuration. If you're going to manually manage state on your servers, it doesn't lead to sameness. It makes things much harder to administer, right? And so that's where tools like Puppet and Chef and Ansible come in, so that you can transform that configuration into code. You can keep it in version control. You can have a single source of truth for what's running on those systems. Makes it easier to audit. All kinds of benefits, right? But what do you do about the layer below that? Sure, you're gonna run this Chef configuration, but where do you run it?
You have to have an OS.
You have to have an OS, right? You probably need a virtual machine or you have some system running somewhere.
Yeah.
Terraform helps answer that question. Terraform's really a tool built for the modern cloud era, right? Where a lot of what you might have set up in a traditional data center has been abstracted. It's kind of at a higher level, or it's provided by API calls or a fancy GUI that you can access on the web. So it's no longer send the tech over to the data center, install the new switch. It's create a new VPC in AWS.
And any of these large services, they have a set of APIs available that you can program for.
Right, yeah.
So the Terraform is sort of plugging into some of that. So would I use Terraform for on-premises deployment?
No, by and large, you wouldn't. If you were running something maybe like OpenStack, right, and you've already built your own infrastructure as a service setup, then yes. But Terraform really plays, it needs this rich API layer to hook into.
So AWS, DigitalOcean, any of the major players?
Yeah, so Terraform has this notion of providers, and a provider is able to provide these resources to you, and that's one of Terraform's main advantages. There are other, AWS has CloudFormation. A lot of the big services have their own version of this, and one of Terraform's main selling points is it lets you orchestrate things across clouds, right? It's not limited to one. It has pretty much all the heavy-hitting AWS elements. It has things in Azure. It has things for OpenStack. So it doesn't, if you have those kinds of technologies already in your organization, you can use one tool to access all of them.
And where does my Terraform server live?
Okay, so that's one handy thing about Terraform. It's a Go application. It's open source. You can go check it out over on GitHub. It's pretty popular. It's got, tons of stars, lots of contributors. It's development at a steady, rapid pace, like a lot of HashiCorp tools. You may know them from things like Packer or Vagrant, which are both tools that are used commonly in the industry. As a Go application, it compiles down to a nice static binary. So you basically just go download a zip file, extract it, and you have a Terraform binary available to you.
You just run it wherever you want.
Yeah. And now, obviously, there are, depending on your organization's need, the scale that you're operating with, you'll probably want to set this up with Jenkins or other, continuous automation tooling if you want to go to that level. That's all available. HashiCorp also sells Terraform Enterprise, which has some of these niceties built into it, some systems around that.
Okay, so a pretty traditional setup we see these days.
Right, but you can just get started with the simple Go tool. So if right here at JB, we're looking at maybe refreshing some things in the infrastructure, I think Terraform is a great tool for that, because a lot of applications and services these days, right? Sometimes it's just, okay, yes, I'm running Nginx on one box. But if you're doing anything at scale or in production, you're going to at least have two. Maybe you're going to have auto-scaling groups. You're going to have separate VPCs. You're going to have databases configured. You're going to have, distributed key value stores. All these services that stack up, that can be hard to replicate. Maybe you just have like a wiki page where okay, first, go log into the console.
Yeah.
Click through this series of 6 steps.
Right.
And so,
or a Google Doc.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a common thing that we see.
Yeah.
It's got to be better than that, right?
Yeah. Dio.co/snap. Go there and sign up for a $100 credit. That's good for 60 days after you create a DigitalOcean account, and then you can really get cooking. DigitalOcean is simplicity at scale. They're on a mission over there to simplify cloud computing so the developers and their teams can spend more time building software that changes the world. If you want to try something out from going to full-blown production, the DigitalOcean infrastructure has got you covered. Rigs that are as low as $5 a month. Everything's SSDs, gig of RAM, multi-core processors, 40 gigabit connections coming into the hypervisors, and 8 data centers all over the world. Scratch that. Now 12 data centers all over the world. Breaking news right here. That is impressive. 12 data centers all over the world. Breaking news from DigitalOcean. You can check out more at dio.co/snap. Take advantage of that $100 credit, and then, after you've deployed a system, check out their documentation. Recently here on the show, we've been talking about Memcached. Well, they've got tutorials on how to properly configure and secure your Memcached setup on CentOS, on Ubuntu LTS, on Debian. Lots to choose from. Just go over to dio.co/snap to get started. Try out my 3 cents an hour system. That is my favorite rig. Play with the block storage. You're going to be impressed. dio.co/snap. So Terraform infrastructure as code, does that mean I programmatically deploy infrastructure? So I build out something using their language and I always get the same exact results?
Exactly. So you get started, you just start making main.tf, which is going to be a Terraform file. It's written using the HashiCorp configuration language, HCL. kind of your, a fairly standard, like a simpler, easier JSON standard sort of algol braces style. You'll see it's pretty much just allowing you to set up a bunch of different variables and declare resources. So it's a very declarative language, and the idea being that you can then build up all of your infrastructure from scratch and have it version controlled and automatically deployable.
So this gets me a system up and running from scratch, but does it then maintain my configuration? Is it essentially a configuration management tool as well, or am I still using traditional like tools such as Chef for that?
Yes, so it's really focused on that base layer, but it does have a notion of provisioners, so you can execute, a local shell script, a remote shell script. It plugs in with tools like Chef or Ansible or Puppet. A lot of things have.
Use Terraform to deploy my Chef.
Yes, exactly. So Terraform lets you deploy the resources you need. Then you can layer on additional layers of configuration, runtime management, and have everything work all from a couple GitHub repos or something like that. And that's where it's really helpful. And it does, to answer your other question, it does help you, maintain that infrastructure as well. So one thing that Terraform has that's somewhat unique is a planning step, and it generates what they call an execution plan. So you type Terraform plan. First off, go type Terraform init. That's going to download any modules you need, kind of get your state file set up. Then you can go into your Terraform file, and probably the easiest thing to do is set up, you start playing. If you're using AWS, that's easy. If you're using DigitalOcean, you basically say, I'm using that provider. You configure some credentials, or you can have it, automatically look for, normal dot files or environmental variables. And then you just declare your first resource. So an easy one is like just an AWS EC2 instance, or you could start up just a DO droplet, right? Start with a basic one, and then you run Terraform plan. And Terraform is going to output a plan detailing exactly what changes it's going to make.
And so in their parlance, you essentially are capable of previewing your infrastructure changes before you actually deploy them. You see the results before you hit the commit.
Yes, exactly right. And that lets you do things too, like you can get, some consensus on things. You can generate that plan from some changes in a PR and then send that out to a distribution list to get review. You can have automated systems do some checking on it. There's all kinds of options.
That is nice.
And then you can then feed that plan back into Terraform to have it actually go execute. Another thing Terraform has that's somewhat unique is as it's building these plans, it does that by building a graph of all your resources. So it can use that to parallelize things when there aren't dependencies, and it makes sure to tear down things and spin things up in that automatic dependency management, sort of something, like Systemd does or other init systems.
Yeah.
You need to know how those are related. Terraform has that knowledge if you do it right.
Yeah, and so it has to know, in a sense, if it's going to spin up systems that are dependent on a database or a backend storage, it has to know what's dependent on each other.
Yeah, right. And there are some cases, right, where like maybe your app has a dependency that's not at the Terraform layer, so it also lets you add those manually if you need to sort of fix the graph up to make it work.
Very good. I was just reviewing some code samples on their site, terraform.io, and it looks pretty straightforward. In fact, they have an example here where they're setting up a DigitalOcean droplet. They give it a name. They say how much memory, what image that DigitalOcean already makes available they want to use, and the domain name for it, the type of IP address, if it should be IP4 or IP6, and sets an A record, and it's all clear. I'm reading it just right here, and it would be easily templatable. Like I could just have a template of this, then I would just tweak it and spin up a system pretty quick. Reading that, there's not a single line in this code example that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you're right. It really is pretty simple, and they have a crazy number of providers, right? So maybe you're using Alibaba's cloud, maybe you're using the Oracle cloud, and a lot of things that aren't necessarily like traditional infrastructure as a service.